Chapter 2281. Because activating the array formation required the cooperation of these 6 people, Luo Jiuchen had the urge to kill all 6 of them at once. Fortunately, he remembered that the flute player could also break the array by himself and didn't seem to need help. Killing these 6 people now would be useless, so he simply waited quietly. The sound of the flute was pleasing to the ears, like flowing water. The 6 people from the underworld acutely sensed that this flute sound was different from the flute sound of the beast tamer. The flute sound now was more like a scholar strolling leisurely under the moon, full of a leisurely feeling. A moment later, the flute sound stopped, and a voice sounded. "Why haven't you broken the array?" The voice was clear with a hint of childishness. It was still the voice of a child. The 6 people from the underworld looked at Luo Jiuchen. Luo Jiuchen raised his eyebrows and suddenly said, "This array seems to have a small accident. Since you know how to break arrays, why don't you come in and discuss it with us?" The 6 people from the underworld widened their eyes. They had received so much help from the flute player, but they still hadn't seen this person's true face. But this person probably wouldn't agree, right? When they were breaking the array core in the north, they had tried all sorts of ways to let the flute player in, but they hadn't succeeded. Unexpectedly, just as Luo Jiuchen finished speaking, the person outside responded with a single word. "Okay." Everyone felt their vision blur, and there was another person in the hall. The moment this person appeared, everyone froze. Especially Luo Jiuchen. His eyes suddenly widened, and his relaxed fingers hidden in his sleeves suddenly clenched tightly. The person who had come was a youth who looked to be 12 or 13 years old. He was dressed in a fitting moon-white robe that fluttered in the wind. His facial features were indescribably beautiful. His thin lips were slightly pursed, and he held a white jade flute in his hand. Red tassels hung down from the flute, becoming the only bright color on his body. His entire person seemed to have been carved out of the most perfect ice jade by the heavens. It was as if a casual breath could blow him away. But this person's aura was so powerful that everyone held their breaths as soon as he entered. This made everyone feel even more pressured. More importantly, this person's aura was innate and not a deliberate release of pressure. The more it was like this, the more the 6 people from the underworld were shocked. Where did this child come from? How could he have such a powerful aura? This child was only about 1.6 meters tall, but he gave the 6 people from the underworld a feeling that they had to look up to him. The moment the person with a lower cultivation level saw this child, his knees went soft, and he almost knelt down. Who was this person? Who was it? Among the 6 people from the underworld, only Marshal Lung had seen Shun Juli before. However, Shun Juli was a divine master at that time. His aura was so strong that it was easy for people to ignore his appearance and be suppressed by his aura. From afar, they would kneel and lower their heads, not daring to look him in the eye. Therefore, Marshal Lung did not remember what the Divine Lord looked like. Moreover, Shun Juli looked like a young teenager now, so he did not recognize him. He only felt that the teenager looked familiar, but he did not dare to think that he was Shun Juli. Luo Jiuchen seemed to have been struck by lightning. After all, he and Shun Juli had been rivals for so many years. Even if he had not seen Shun Juli's appearance before, he could still recognize him. His mind was buzzing. He stared at Shun Juli and could not believe his eyes. This person's soul was obviously gone. How could he appear again? Could he be resurrected? Chapter 2282. This person's soul was obviously gone. How could he appear again? Could he be resurrected? This was not logical. It was very illogical. Was this not him? Was this his son? That was not right. He only had one son, and that was Shun Yinma. That kid was still drinking milk. It was impossible for him to grow so big overnight. The expression in his eyes fluctuated intensely as he stood there motionlessly. Shun Juli's gaze landed on Shuima's face. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and a smile appeared in his eyes. "Shuima, are you so happy to see me that you've gone silly?" Luo Jiuchen was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that he was still in Ning Shuima's appearance. His heart skipped a beat, and finally he spoke with a trembling voice, "Julie?" This time, he used Ning Shuima's voice to speak. It was so vivid that no one could tell the difference between the two. Even his expression at the moment was very similar to Ning Xiuma's expression when she first saw Shunjuli. She was first stunned, then surprised, and then in disbelief. Shunjuli's voice was gentle. "It's me, Xiuma. I'm back. Xiuma, I'm back." Ning Xiuma did not know how long she had been waiting for this sentence. She longed for it so much that her heart ached. However, it was under such a situation. Ning Xiuma, who was underwater, desperately looked up at the surface of the water, but she could not see him. Shunjuli was not standing by the edge of the pool, so Ning Xiuma could not see his current appearance. Although his voice was still unfamiliar to her, she could recognize his identity from his conversation with Luo Jiuchen. It was him. It was really him. The flute player was really him. At this moment, Ning Xiuma's heart seemed to have been poured with a bucket of boiling oil, and her blood was boiling. Hot blood rushed to the top of her head, making her want to shout out loud. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Intense emotions surged in her chest, causing her mind to go blank for a moment. At this moment, all of his analysis and rationality had disappeared without a trace. Only a few words were crazily flooding his mind. He was back. He was back. He really came back. God, he really came back. The heavenly lost stone didn't lie to her. Sure enough, he was revived within half a year. If the heavenly Tao stone was in her hands right now, she would probably kiss it in an instant. She was so surprised that she froze on the spot. She tried her best to open her eyes wide and look at the surface of the water. She also tried her best to prick her ears to catch all the movements on the surface. His shallow breathing, the sound of his footsteps, and his last sentence, "Xiuma, I'm back." Ning Xiuma almost burst into tears in an instant, but she also felt as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over her head, making her feel cold from head to toe. Luo Jiuchen still looked like her. He had even started to pretend to be her in front of Shunjuli. And Shunjuli's words were also directed at that bastard. Could it be that he didn't see through Luo Jiuchen's disguise? Ning Xiuma's fingers were clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Luo Jiuchen was very good at acting, and his disguise technique was also very good. If she didn't have the fiery golden eyes, she probably wouldn't be able to recognize him. If she couldn't recognize that bastard, she was afraid that she would be tricked by that bastard. Ning Xiuma's heart was half cold and half fire. She couldn't help but shout, "Great God, don't believe him. He's fake. He's fake. I'm here." Her voice was so loud that it almost deafened her own ears, but the people on the surface obviously didn't hear it, because she heard Shunjuli's voice again, "Xiuma, come here." Chapter 2283. It was still a child's voice, but there was an indescribable laziness in it, just like the way he used to call her. Ning Xiuma's heart trembled again. She opened her eyes wide, trying to see him, but it was in vain. Luo Jiuchen was also staring at Shunjuli, and Shunjuli was also looking at him, with a gentleness he had never seen before. Their eyes were entangled in the air. Luo Jiuchen was indeed an old fox who had lived for tens of thousands of years. He quickly adjusted his mentality. He looked at Shunjuli with trembling eyes, and his voice was still trembling. "Julie, how did you become like this?" He was acting on the surface, but countless thoughts were churning in his mind. Did Shunjuli recognize him, or did he deliberately mistake him for someone else? Based on his understanding of Shunjuli, this person had always been arrogant and disdained to act. If he recognized him, he would probably fight with him directly, right? Luo Jiuchen looked at Shunjuli calmly. When he saw his 12 or 13-year-old appearance, his heart skipped a beat. Looking at Shunjuli's appearance, his power obviously hadn't recovered. He couldn't even change his appearance to that of an adult. In this case, if he recognized that he was the fake Ning Xiuma, he wouldn't appear so openly at this time, right? He was most likely still hiding in the dark to plot against him. From this, it could be inferred that Shunjuli might not recognize him because of his reduced power. He might think that he was the real Ning Xiuma, so he couldn't wait to appear at this time. Luo Jiuchen's acting was so real that Shunjuli obviously didn't see it. Hearing Luo Jiuchen's question, he just sighed softly. "It's a long story. Forget it. Now is not the time to talk about this. I'm afraid that Luo Jiuchen will come in a moment. Let's quickly find a way to break this array and then talk about other things. Luo Jiuchen's eyes narrowed slightly, as if a storm had flashed past his eyes. He steeled his heart and walked towards Shun Julie step by step. Great God, am I dreaming? You're actually alive. I'm so happy. Tears seemed to be rolling in his eyes. He looked like he was really crying from happiness. Then, he threw himself in front of Shun Julie and opened his arms to hug him. It couldn't be helped. Shun Julie still looked like a child, and Ning Xiuma was half a head taller than him. Luo Jiuchen had no bottom line, and when lovers met, they should hug. Therefore, he made up his mind and threw himself into Shun Julie's arms. Shun Julie staggered when he bumped into him, but he reached out to hug him and sighed, "Xiuma." The two of them hugged each other, and the 6 generals of the underworld were dumbfounded. This awe-inspiring demon lord actually threw herself into the arms of a child, acting like a helpless little bird. This scene was strange, no matter how one looked at it. However, this was a touching scene after all, so the 6 of them kindly held back their laughter. Luo Jiuchen took the opportunity to sense Shun Julie's psychokinesis in his arms. It really didn't seem to be high. That's right, those who entered his array would have their psychokinesis reduced. Shun Julie hadn't recovered yet, so his psychokinesis would be even lower. According to his deduction, Shun Julie's power was at most on par with Sky Emperor and the others. There was no need to be afraid of him. Even if they were to fight face to face, the current Shun Julie was far from being his opponent. What's more, Shun Julie still thought that he was Ning Xiuma, so it would be even easier to scheme against him. Luo Jiuchen wrapped his arms around Shun Julie's waist, and his palm even gently approached a major acupuncture point on Shun Julie's waist. Chapter 2284. Luo Jiuchen wrapped his arms around Shun Julie's waist, and his palms even gently approached one of Shun Julie's major acupuncture points on his waist. He only needed to use a special method to lightly touch it, and Shun Julie would be seriously injured. Luo Jiuchen didn't know how many times he had suffered in the hands of Shun Julie in his life. Now, he finally had a chance to turn the tables. Shun Julie's life was in his hands. He could take his life at any time. Shun Julie didn't seem to know that the person in his arms was scheming against him. He even pulled her into his arms, tightened his arms, and sighed. "Xiuma, fortunately, you're okay. When I was breaking the array in the south, I was afraid that Luo Jiuchen would come to your side to plot against you. So, as soon as the matter over there was over, I immediately rushed over. Fortunately, that guy hasn't come yet. He probably heard the movement in the south and rushed there. Otherwise, if you have any more accidents, he was probably moved." This great god, who had always been high and mighty, actually said a few words of love in public. The jaws of the 6 people from the underworld almost dropped. They had never even heard of such a supreme god before. However, they were husband and wife who had reunited after a long time. Under such circumstances, it wasn't surprising that he would say such things. Luo Jiuchen's eyes moved slightly. He seemed to have suddenly thought of an excellent idea, and a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes. It was easy for him to kill Shun Julie now, but killing him like this would be too easy for him. If he let Shun Julie break the array's core without knowing and release the array guardian beast to eat Ning Xiuma, it was equivalent to Ning Xiuma dying in the hands of Shun Julie. Then, he would let Shun Julie know all of this. At that time, Shun Julie's expression would be very good. Then, this great god would really live a life worse than death, and his spirit would completely collapse. Luo Jiuchen could almost imagine Shun Julie's regretful face. He took a light breath and slowly moved his palm away from Shun Julie's back. "Guru, it's better for us to break the array as soon as possible, lest something unexpected happens." Shun Julie nodded slightly. "That's right. Luo Jiuchen will be here at any time. Xiuma, you should be the one to break this array core. After activating these ferocious corpses and the guardian beast, I will use the flute to control them." Luo Jiuchen was straightforward. "Okay." He took a step back and was about to fly up when he suddenly staggered. Shun Juli reached out to support him. "What's wrong?" Luo Jiuchen frowned, and there was a trace of pain in his voice. "My leg was injured just now, and it hurts a little." Shun Juli did not hesitate at all. He casually handed him a bottle of medicine. "Is it an external injury? Use this." Of course, Luo Jiuchen took it without hesitation and pursed his lips. "Juli, the position of my injury is a little awkward." Shun Juli handed him a bottle of medicine and told him how to use it. Finally, he said, "Take this first. This medicine can not only heal your injuries, but also improve your skills. When we get out of here, find a quiet place, and I will personally apply the medicine to you." Luo Jiuchen pursed his lips and nodded obediently. "Okay." He was a little embarrassed, "but I still have to break the array." He supported himself and tried to stand up. Shun Juli sighed. "Don't worry, I will break the array core." After a pause, he helped him to the corridor at the entrance of the hall and whispered, "Take a rest here." He turned around and walked 2 steps, then came back uneasily. Chapter 2285. He turned around and walked 2 steps, but he was still worried about coming back. He waved his hand and set up a boundary around Luo Jiuchen. "It's not safe here. In order to prevent you from being accidentally hurt, I'll set up this boundary for you temporarily. This boundary only protects you from the outside. You can come out at any time, but it will take some time for a strong enemy to break into the boundary. This way, it will be convenient for me to save you in time." Luo Jiuchen nodded slightly and did not forget to remind him, "Then be careful." Shun Juli smiled faintly. "I know." Then he turned around and walked back into the hall. He told the 6 people from the underworld, "You guys go out too. I can handle this array by myself. You just need to protect the Devil Lord." The 6 people naturally obeyed this divine lord. They walked out and stood on both sides of Luo Jiuchen's boundary. Luo Jiuchen was a little suspicious. He quietly reached out from inside the boundary and passed through it easily, as if the boundary did not exist. Shun Juli did not lie to him. This boundary only protected him from the outside. As long as he found something wrong, he could immediately break out of the boundary. Luo Jiuchen was finally relieved. Watching Shun Juli walk to the side of the pool, his eyes flashed with a fiery excitement. The most melodramatic and hot-blooded scene was about to play out. Ning Xuan naturally heard all the movements above from the bottom of the water. She clenched her fingers so tightly that her nails were embedded in her flesh. She knew very well what Luo Jiuchen's final plan was. That bastard. He was simply the best of the perverts. She could die, but she definitely could not die in the hands of Shun Juli. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy of unprecedented proportions. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the water surface. Finally, she saw Shun Juli come to the side of the pool. She finally saw his figure across the water surface and clearly saw his appearance. Although she was mentally prepared, her heart still felt like it was hit by a big hammer. It seemed that he had not really recovered and could not even maintain his adult appearance. He actually appeared in front of everyone like this. She knew Shun Juli's character very well. He didn't want anyone to see how he looked when he was a child. Now he was doing this to save her. It seemed that he was really going all out. A fire seemed to ignite in her heart. She stared at Shun Juli on the surface of the water, took a deep breath, and shouted again, "Guru, that was a fake. I'm here. You can't break the formation." Of course, Shun Juli still did not hear her. He was walking around the green pond, casting a charm into the water from time to time. It was obvious that they were preparing to break the formation. Of course, Luo Jiuchen could hear Ning Xuema's cry. He laughed in his heart and sent a voice transmission to her. "Little Xuema, he can't hear you. Don't waste your energy." Ning Xuema ignored him. She had no time to deal with this person. She continued to call out to Shun Juli, but there was no response from him. Her voice became more and more anxious, more and more desperate. In the end, her voice could even be called mournful. Luo Jiuchen was happy to see this scene. The corners of his lips curled up, but his smile was slightly cold. He watched for a moment as Shun Juli cast the spell. Shun Julie's fingertips flicked into the water, and streaks of white light shuttled back and forth. It was very beautiful. However, Luo Jiuqin had never seen this method of breaking the formation before. He endured for a while and finally said, "Guru, what are you doing?" Shun Juli did not turn his head. He only replied indifferently, "Breaking the formation. But I don't remember breaking the formation using this method." Luo Jiuqin was still worried. Chapter 2286. Shun Juli finally turned around and glanced at him. "Idiot, I'm an expert in setting up arrays, so naturally, I'm also an expert in breaking arrays. Don't worry, this is my way of breaking arrays. It's foolproof." General Lung also said, "Devil Master, don't worry. The Divine Lord has already broken 2 arrays in a row without any help. He should have his own way of breaking arrays." "That's true." Luo Jiuqin's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. He stared at Shun Juli closely. On one hand, he wanted to learn his way of breaking arrays. On the other hand, he was making hand seals in his sleeves to guard against Shun Juli's tricks. Under the influence of Shun Juli's finger wind, the green pool began to ripple and the green corpses began to move slowly. Ning Xiaoma could clearly see Shun Juli's movements underwater. Naturally, she could also sense the changes in the pool water. She felt that the pool water seemed to be a little hot, and it seemed to be getting hotter and hotter. "Shun Juli, don't break the array, or you'll regret it. You'll definitely regret it." Ning Xiaoma's voice was almost hoarse from shouting, but Shun Juli was unmoved. He continued to set up the array methodically. The more miserable Ning Xiaoma's screams were, the better it was for Luo Jiuqin. He quietly opened a voice recorder charm in his sleeve and began to record Ning Xiaoma's screams like a tape recorder. Of course, he had to record the screams of the guardian beast when it bit Ning Xiaoma. He was going to show it to Shun Juli after Ning Xiaoma was eaten by the guardian beast. He estimated that this would be the biggest and heaviest blow to Shun Juli. Thinking of this, Luo Jiuqin almost trembled with excitement. His heart was beating fast, and his palms were sweating. He stared closely at Shun Juli's every move, afraid to miss any good show. Finally, Shun Juli's preparatory work was completed. The green corpses were all facing the place where the totem pole was supposed to rise. Only the last step was left. Ning Xiaoma's hands and feet were cold. She looked at everything that was happening on the totem pole. She saw Shun Juli's figure fluttering in the air, his white, jade-like palm directly pressed towards the totem pole. She pursed her lips tightly, and her heart almost stopped beating. "Pa!" A cracking sound was heard. Ning Xiaoma opened her eyes wide as she saw Shun Juli's palm pass through the green water surface. It didn't hit the center of the totem pole. Instead, it abruptly deviated and directly hit the transparent barrier covering Ning Xiaoma's body. The cover shattered with a loud sound. Shun Juli's hand didn't stop at all. His fingers were like scissors, cutting the chain that bound Ning Xiaoma. A red light flashed between his fingers. The chain that Ning Xiaoma couldn't break was broken by Shun Juli's fingers. With a crash, the chain finally broke away from Ning Xiaoma's body and fell to the bottom of the water. Ning Xiaoma felt like she was in a dream. As soon as she was free, she felt that her wrist was grasped by someone and then rushed out of the water. The cover was condensed by Luo Jiuqin's psyche power, so it naturally had a telepathic connection with him. At the moment when the cover shattered, Luo Jiuqin noticed that something was wrong. His face changed, and he shouted, "What are you doing?" He suddenly rushed out and wanted to stop it. However, he did not expect to bump into the so-called protection enchantment that Shun Juli had set up for him. Stars flashed in front of his eyes. Damn it! Wasn't this protective barrier supposed to block the outside, but not the inside? Didn't they say that it could be broken easily? Why didn't he break it with his great strength? Luo Jiuqin couldn't believe his eyes. He took a step back and raised his hand to hit the barrier in front of him. Chapter 2287. Luo Jiuqin could hardly believe his eyes. He took a step back and raised his hand to smash the enchantment in front of him. Bang! With a loud noise, the The enchantment in front of him shook and a few fine cracks appeared, but it didn't break. Luo Jiuchen gritted his teeth. He was fooled. He was fooled by Shun Jiuli again. This person should have recognized him long ago, but he could still talk to him calmly and even coax him like a lover. It turned out that Shun Jiuli had such a shameless time. It was an eye-opener for him. However, so what if he broke the enchantment that covered Ning Xiuema? The cold iron demon chain was made of countless demon souls. Without a special method, even if he had the power of God, he couldn't break it. As long as Ning Xiuema wasn't released, he still had a chance. Luo Jiuchen almost didn't think and immediately tried to break the enchantment in front of him. However, before he had time to make a second move, he found that Shun Jiuli had cut his cold iron demon chain like cutting a piece of cloth and directly pulled Ning Xiuema out of the water. The moment the enchantment was broken, the green water rushed in and soaked Ning Xiuema's whole body. When the chain was broken, Ning Xiuema's psyche power instantly flowed again. Before she could react, a fair and jade-like hand grabbed her wrist. The small hand was not big and was even a little cold and trembling, but the moment it held her, it was as if it was holding the whole world and would never let go. It made Ning Xiuema's heart feel as if it was being held, and the blood in her body was boiling instantly. When she was pulled out of the water by Shun Jiuli, her whole body was floating. Her mind was blank, but the joy in her chest was about to explode. All kinds of intense emotions mixed together and surged, making her unable to make any reaction for a while. She even forgot that she was in a mess and forgot to clean herself up with a cleaning talisman. Just like that, she fell to the ground with Shun Jiuli. The 6 people from the underworld were completely stunned. They didn't expect that this divine master didn't slap out a guardian beast, but directly pulled out a person. And this person was the Devil Master. Even if Ning Xiuema was in a mess, she was still the Devil Master. They looked at Ning Xiuema and then looked at the person beside them. For a moment, they were a little confused and didn't know which one was real and which one was fake. However, Shun Jiuli did not give them any time to think. The moment he lifted Ning Xiuema up, he turned around and shot out another ray of white light to reinforce Luo Jiuchen, who had just cracked the enchantment barrier. Luo Jiuchen, the 6 people from the underworld, Shun Jiuli's figure intentionally or unintentionally flashed and blocked the eyes of the people looking at Ning Xiuema. He raised his hand and cast a cleaning talisman on Ning Xiuema. Ning Xiuema's body instantly became clean, and she returned to her fluttering red dress. Shun Jiuli also cast a few cleaning talismans on himself, as if he was stained with something dirty. His eyes were fixed on her body, and his palm was still holding her. His eyes slowly looked at her from head to toe, and then from foot to head, as if he was confirming something. His eyes were as deep as a pool, as if to suck her in. Finally, he asked the first sentence, "Xiuema, how are you?" It was a very simple sentence, but it warmed her heart. Ning Xiuema secretly took a breath and finally came back to her senses. She suppressed the joy that was about to surge out of her chest, raised her small face, and showed a bright smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Her voice was still a little hoarse, but her smile was very bright. She looked at him, and her eyes were reluctant to leave for a moment. "So you really recognized that he was a fake?" Shun Jiuli's icy blue eyes were filled with a gentle luster. His voice was still faint, but the words he said were not faint at all. "I may have mistaken the whole world for someone else, but only you." Chapter 2288. He had loved her for 3 lifetimes and had never given up on her. He could lose everything, but she was the only one he would never let go of. Even if she turned into ashes, he would still recognize her. Ning Xiuema's heart was filled with warmth. This person said that he didn't know how to say sweet nothings. Wasn't this the best thing to say? Shun Jiuli reached out his hand, and a blue pill rolled in his palm. "Come, eat this first." Ning Xiuema didn't ask why at all. She took it and swallowed it. A wisp of coolness slid down her throat. Her hoarse voice seemed to have received the best nourishment and slowly relaxed. "How is it?" "Much better." Ning Xiuema's voice was much clearer. At this moment, Her pretty face had regained its blush, and her eyes were as bright as stars. Shunjuli's heart skipped a beat. He raised his arm and hugged her tightly. He said in her ear, "Wait for me." Although his voice still had a trace of a child's voice, his tone and actions were the same as before. He hugged her tightly, as if he couldn't wait to bury her in his bones. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. Shunjuli had already let go of her and raised his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. "We'll talk about it later." Ning Xiuma nodded and agreed without hesitation. Okay, they had a long future ahead of them. There were too many things they wanted to do. They could slowly do them one by one. But now, Ning Xiuma's eyes finally turned to Luo Jiuchen. "Luo Jiuchen, aren't you ashamed of yourself as a man pretending to be a woman?" To the 6 people of the Netherworld, these words were no less shocking than an earth-shattering revelation. The 6 people's faces changed, and they all stepped back. They held their magic weapons in their hands and stared at Luo Jiuchen, who had yet to break the barrier. "You," Luo Jiuchen's eyes flashed. He suddenly said to Ning Xiuma in a deep voice, "You are Luo Jiuchen in disguise. I am the Devil Lord." His eyes fell on Shunjuli and were as sharp as needles. This person is not the supreme god. He must be Luo Jiuchen's people in disguise. I won't let you off. He continued to attack the barrier while making false accusations against Zhu Beiji. His current kung fu had already reached the peak of perfection. After a few consecutive attacks, the first layer of the enchantment finally shattered with a bang. Because the first layer of the enchantment shook too much, the second layer of the enchantment also shook. It looked like it was about to break apart. Ning Xiuma and Shunjuli glanced at each other. Then, they took action at the same time. A golden red light and a white light circled around Luo Jiuchen in the air and then merged together, covering Luo Jiuchen directly. When the light dissipated, a pale golden enchantment with red edges appeared around Luo Jiuchen. Fiend God Barrier. The enchantment set up by gods and devils was stronger than any enchantment in the world. When Ning Xiuma traveled back in time 50,000 years ago, she and Shunjuli had worked together to set up a barrier in the Fantian Palace. The two of them were used to working together, so they knew what to do with just a glance. She didn't expect that 50,000 years later, after Shunjuli was reborn, they could still work together so well. Ning Xiuma was gratified, but she couldn't help but look at him beside her. A question surfaced in her mind. Was the current great god the great god who traveled back in time 50,000 years ago, or the great god who was reborn with 3 lives of memories? Of course, this thought only turned in her mind for a moment before she suppressed it. Now was not the time to think about this. Luo Jiuchen had just broken the second layer of the enchantment, but before he could stretch his arms and legs, he was covered by the Fiend God Barrier again. Chapter 2289. There was a faint golden light in the enchantment of gods and devils, and there were countless shining Sanskrit characters spinning rapidly in the golden light. The Sanskrit characters spun faster and faster, and quickly penetrated the red light. Finally, the Sanskrit characters covered the whole enchantment. The golden and red light represented the joint judgment of gods, devils, and Buddhas. It could trap any creature that had committed the most heinous of crimes and torture their souls at every moment. Luo Jiuchen only felt that his whole body was thrown into a raging fire, and his soul was almost roasted. Every inch of his body was in pain, as if it was being torn apart. Of course, he was unwilling to give up. He frequently used various spells to break the enchantment, but the enchantment did not move at all. It was like a golden and red shield, suppressing his whole body under it, and he could no longer turn over. The pain almost made him want to roll and howl. But she was outside. Even if she did not love him, or even hated him, he did not want her to see him in such a sorry state. His face was blue, white, and red, but he tried to keep his poise. The spells in his hands changed and complicated, and various lights hit the enchantment of gods and devils from time to time, trying to open a gap to the outside world. Ning Xiuma did not expect the enchantment set up by her and Shun Juli to be so powerful. 50,000 years ago, when she and Shun Juli were in their heyday, the enchantment set up was not so powerful. What was going on this time? As if sensing Ning Xiuma's doubts, Shun Juli held her hand and said, "This is not a simple enchantment of gods and devils, but also a Buddhist device." Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. When she was reborn this time, her body emitted golden and red light. Baizhe seemed to have said that there was a Buddhist nature in her magic light. It seemed to be the reason. If she and Shun Juli set up the enchantment alone, it would not be so powerful. Only when the two of them worked together, it would be invincible. Thinking of this, she was happy and couldn't help but hug Shun Juli's arm. Guru, it seems that we are invincible with the combination of the two enchantments. She was used to hugging his arm, and every time she hugged him, she hung on his arm. This time, it was as if she was holding him by the arm. She lowered her head subconsciously and found that Shun Juli seemed to be a little shorter than before. If he was 1.6 meters tall earlier, he was now about 1.55 meters tall. Even his facial features were a little more tender. Ning Xiuma was about 1.66 meters tall. She was 10 centimeters taller than him. Shun Juli smiled and said, "When we combine our powers, we will be invincible." Even he didn't expect that the enchantment they set up together would be so powerful. If he had known earlier, he would have come out to meet her when he was breaking the array core in the north. He didn't come out in advance because he didn't want Luo Jiuchen to discover his existence before all the array cores were destroyed. He didn't want Luo Jiuchen to rush out of the array and destroy it, as well as the lives of everyone in the array. He had no choice but to come out this time. As soon as he arrived, he found that the Ning Xiuma in the hall was a fake. It was Luo Jiuchen in disguise. He secretly used his third eye to search and found Ning Xiuma trapped under the water. Seeing that her life was hanging by a thread, he showed up regardless of everything. Of course, the moment he showed up, he began to plot in his heart and led Luo Jiuchen into his trap step by step. For this reason, he even accompanied Luo Jiuchen to put on an act. He even endured the disgust and hugged him as if he was Ning Xiuma. Chapter 2290. Luo Jiuchen's face darkened when he saw the interaction between the two of them. Wind and clouds gathered in his eyes. He continued to use Ning Xiuma's voice to disguise himself. He shouted at the 6 people from the underworld who obviously hadn't figured out the situation. "She's pretending to be me. Can't you see? Let me out." The 6 people from the underworld finally turned their eyes back to him. General Lung suddenly laughed as if he had heard an incredible joke. "Luo Jiuchen, you still want to pretend to be our devil lord? Take a piss and look at yourself first." "That's right. A scum like you wants to pretend to be the devil lord. What a joke. I've lived for so many years, but this is the first time I've met such a weirdo. A man pretending to be a woman is so shy. Bah, I'm going to vomit." Luo Jiuchen was stunned. He looked down at himself, and his face darkened. He didn't know when it started, but his body had changed back to its original appearance. He hated that he didn't realize it and gave them a big joke for no reason. The divine devil enchantment not only had the function of trapping him, but also could automatically restore his original appearance. A trace of viciousness flashed across his eyes. He waved his hand, and a black fog appeared out of thin air. There were countless large and small ferocious faces in the black fog. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced on the enchantment. The 6 people closest to the barrier felt a chill run down their spines when they sensed the resentment coming from the barrier. But they didn't expect that the moment the black fog touched the enchantment, it would be like a moth flying into a fire. Shrill screams came from the black fog as if it was burned by fire. It turned into charred balls and fell to the ground. It twitched a few times and then stopped breathing. Luo Jiuchen's deadly black fog disappeared without a trace. He was so angry that his teeth itched. He was unwilling to give up and used all kinds of methods, but the magic attacks that hit the enchantment would be reflected back to the caster. So all of Luo Jiuchen's moves were used on himself. Luo Jiuchen gave up on magic attacks and began to use physical attacks. But once his body touched the enchantment, the flowing Sanskrit would immediately flow onto his body. The burning sensation hurt all the way to his soul. His originally handsome and warm face was now filled with viciousness. He had to escape first. When he came back, he would personally kill these people. He chanted an earth-burrowing art, and with a flash, he burrowed into the ground. The 6 of them were shocked and shouted, "Divine Lord!" He ran away. Once Luo Jiuchen successfully escaped, they would definitely face crazy revenge. Shun Juli glanced at the barrier indifferently. His voice was cold and emotionless. He can't run away. Sure enough, as soon as Shun Juli finished speaking, Luo Jiuchen came out again. At this moment, he was in a much more sorry state than before. His entire body was covered in wounds. He glared fiercely at Shun Juli. The hatred in his eyes was almost tangible. He wanted nothing more than to tear Shun Juli apart. Ning Shuma looked at Luo Jiuchen's disheveled appearance, and the gloom in her heart finally dissipated a little. She crossed her arms and said leisurely, "Luo Jiuchen, I forgot to tell you that underneath the fiend god boundary is the 3 true flames. TSK, look at you." Ning Shuama's heart, which had been stretched taut, finally relaxed a bit. At this moment, she had the leisure to laugh at Luo Jiuchen. Luo Jiuchen. His eyes fell on Ning Shuama like an awl. He suddenly sighed. "Little Shuama, do you want me to die so badly?" Chapter 2291. Ning Shuama glanced at him coldly. "I don't want you to die. I want you to go to the 18th level of hell." She had never hated a person so much. Luo Jiuchen was the first. Luo Jiuchen slightly lowered his eyes, the corner of his mouth slightly hooked up. Suddenly, he smiled and slowly took out a white jade hairpin. He placed it under his nose and sniffed it. "Little Shuama, no matter what, I still have to thank you for giving me the only headdress you have. This hairpin, I will always keep it with me." Ning Shuama was speechless. She flicked her fingers, and 2 golden and red lights shot towards Luo Jiuchen. She would rather give her things to a real monkey than give them to him. Luo Jiuchen had been prepared for this. The wizardry barrier was not big, but it almost surrounded him, making it difficult for him to move. Ning Shuma shot 2 golden and red lights at him. One went between his eyebrows, and the other went to his wrist. He could only dodge one of them. Ning Shuma thought that he would dodge the one between his eyebrows, but he dodged the one on his wrist. He couldn't dodge the other one, so he could only tilt his head. Luckily, he dodged the one between his eyebrows, but it shot directly at his temple. He groaned. His temple seemed to have a small snake in it. He was in so much pain that his face turned pale, and he broke out in a cold sweat. He smiled and raised his hand to put the hairpin into his storage space. Then he looked up at Ning Shuama. "Little Shuama, if you want this hairpin back, you'll have to kill me." The storage space was hidden in people's hearts and lungs. If you forcibly took something from someone's storage space, you would have to kill the person. In that case, the storage space would lose its effect and the thing would fall out. Luo Jiuchen was a standard immortal, so no one knew what would happen to him after he turned into a demon. Therefore, Ning Shuama's hairpin was probably a meat bun thrown to a dog, and it would never return. Ning Shuama secretly clenched her fingers. She didn't care about the hairpin, but she didn't want it to fall into his hands for his fantasies. Shun Jili patted the back of her hand gently. "Don't worry, I'm here for everything." A sword slowly appeared in his hand as he looked at Luo Jiuchen indifferently. "I will do as you wish." Luo Jiuchen was shocked, but then he sneered, "Shun Jili, you may be able to defeat me, but don't even think about killing me." Furthermore, he glanced maliciously at Shun Jili. "Your power is not even 10 to 20% of your original power. As long as I can get out of here, I can immediately tear you apart. I'll let you die again." He then looked at Ning Shuama. It was hard to tell whether his gaze was filled with hatred or affection. "And she will be mine sooner or later." His voice was filled with an eerie, ghostly aura. He was obviously trapped in the barrier, but the aura on his body was shocking in an instant, causing the 6 people from the underworld who were closer to him to shiver in their hearts. They couldn't help but retreat. Ning Shuima pursed her lips. If you want to beat a drowning dog, you have to beat it to death. You can't have the slightest mercy, or there will be endless trouble. Unfortunately, because she lacked 2 ingredients for the poison of heavenly water, she hadn't been able to refine it until now. Even if she defeated Luo Jiuchen, she couldn't really kill him. Shun Juli was too lazy to pay attention to Luo Jiuchen. He patted the back of Ning Shuima's hand gently. Shuima, you rest here first. I'll go break the array core. Ning Shuima pulled him back. Shun Juli seemed to be a little younger. He used to look like a 13-year-old child, but now he looked like an 11 or 12-year-old. Chapter 2292. He must have expended a lot of energy to save her, right? Although she was in danger at the moment, she felt an unprecedented warmth in her heart. She smiled and pulled Shun Juli back. Almighty, have a good rest. Leave the matter of breaking the array to me. Her eyes flashed with confidence. She was shining like a morning star. Shun Juli looked at her dazzling appearance, and his eyes moved. This was his Shuima. Although she was weak at the beginning, she had been working hard to grow. Now, she had finally grown into an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. She no longer relied on him blindly, but could help him solve his problems. They were the closest lovers, and at the same time, the most trusted comrade in arms. He was proud of her. How lucky he was to be able to marry her. Shun Juli reached out and hugged her. Okay, Shuima, be careful. He had recovered less than a third of his power. Previously, he had used up a lot of his telekinesis to break the array. When he rescued Ning Shuima, he had used up a lot of his telekinesis. After setting up the divine demon enchantment, his telekinesis had almost reached its limit. At the moment, although he was holding on, his body had shrunk a little. He really needed to rest for a while to recover. Ning Shuima lowered her head and kissed him on the forehead. Don't worry, I will. Then she turned and left. Shun Juli, this feeling of being hugged like a child. He looked at her with a faint smile. He wasn't embarrassed. His child appearance was only temporary. He would grow up soon and return to his original appearance. At that time, he would hug her back. He raised his hand and swallowed a few pills. Then, he closed his eyes and concentrated. After a while, a faint white light appeared around him and flowed endlessly around him. Previously, Ning Shuima had already broken several barriers, so breaking this one was naturally a walk in the park for her. Luo Jiuchen looked at the scene of Shun Juli and Ning Shuima being intimate, and his eyes gradually turned red. Why? Why should Shun Juli monopolize all the benefits in the world? He was also a god, and his abilities were equally boundless. Why did Ning Shuima only have eyes for Shun Juli? Luo Jiuchen had done so much, but why did Ning Shuima still look at him as if he was a disgusting thing? He refused to accept this. He refused to accept it. He gritted his teeth and laughed. His voice was as slippery as a venomous snake's, carrying a sinister and evil feeling. Little Shuima, you can only trap me temporarily, but you can't kill me. I have an immortal body. When I come out, I'll definitely ravage you to death. Ah, he suddenly screamed. Indeed, Shun Juli shot out a white light that shot into the barrier like an arrow, leaving a terrifying wound on Luo Jiuchen's mouth, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. This fiend god barrier was designed to defend against the inside and not the outside. Anger rose in Luo Jiuchen's eyes, but the more angry his heart was, the calmer his appearance was. Luo Jiuchen looked at Shun Juli and said playfully, "When did you recognize me?" He had always thought that his transformation technique was the best in the world, and he could imitate Ning Shuima perfectly. Moreover, he had risked everything to imitate Ning Shuima and threw himself into his arms. How did he recognize him? Anyway, he couldn't get out for a while, so he might as well disturb Shun Juli so that he couldn't meditate to recover. Unexpectedly, Shun Juli didn't even look at him, as if he didn't exist. Luo Jiuchen was even angrier. He racked his brains and wanted to talk to Shun Juli. How did you break the barrier I set around Ning Xiuma? Little Xiuma struggled for a long time, but couldn't break it. She could only watch you approach step by step. Chapter 2293. He racked his brains and tried to talk to Shunjuli. How did you break the wizardry barrier I set around Ning Xiuma? Your little Xiuma struggled for a long time, but failed to break my wizardry barrier. She could only watch you approach step by step, and then she was killed by you. Shunjuli glanced at Luo Jiuchen and waved his hand. He cast a silence spell and silenced Luo Jiuchen's voice. This time, Luo Jiuchen was really locked up in the small dark room. The 6 people of the underworld also breathed a sigh of relief and finally stopped. God knew why Luo Jiuchen was so noisy. He was like a fly buzzing around, which made them feel dizzy. In fact, Shunjuli broke the wizardry barrier that locked Ning Xiuma at the beginning, not the array that would take away Xiuma's life. When he was about to break the array, he naturally heard Ning Xiuma's desperate cry. Looking at her embarrassed appearance under the water, he looked calm on the surface, but his heart tightened. But in order not to be noticed by Luo Jiuchen, he could only pretend that he didn't hear or see anything. It seemed that it was the last blow that broke Ning Xiuma's wizardry barrier, but in fact his goal from the beginning was to save her. But he suspected that this girl had guessed his purpose when he set up all this by the pool. Her scream seemed to be for Luo Jiuchen to hear. It was the first time that he had heard her scream so hoarsely, as if she was extremely scared. But he didn't see the real despair and panic on her face when she had been looking up at him. At that time, she looked at him with eyes like fire. This girl had always been a genius at acting. Shunjuli meditated for a moment, and with the help of the strange medicine he had, his body recovered a little. Now was not the time to meditate and rest. After a while, Ning Xiuma would break the array eye. At that time, the array guardian beast would come out, and he would need to use the flute to order them to kill each other. As soon as he got up, he found that there was also a circle of golden red enchantment around him. Needless to say, Ning Xiuma saw him meditating and was afraid that he would be attacked, so she set it up for him in advance. She was really extraordinarily considerate. His heart was filled with warmth. The feeling of being cared for by someone he loved was simply too good. Ning Xiuma had been paying attention to Shunjuli's movements while she was arranging the formation eye. Seeing him get up, she looked at him with concern in her eyes. Shunjuli gave her a look that said he was fine. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief and continue to arrange everything at hand. The two of them did not speak, but with one look, they understood each other's thoughts. There was no more tacit understanding between them. The enchantment that Ning Xiuma had set up for him only blocked the outside but not the inside. Shunjuli easily broke the enchantment. Holding the white jade flute, he walked out and stood in front of the divine devil enchantment. Luo Jiuchen sat there in a purple robe. His face was abnormally pale, probably because he had been burned by the invisible fire in the divine devil enchantment. From time to time, purple light would emit from his body. It was obvious that he was using his own protective psychokinesis to resist. His eyes were open, and his gaze was fixed on Ning Xiuma. He did not even blink, and no one knew what he was thinking. After Shunjuli walked over, he blocked his line of sight. He looked up coldly and stared at Shunjuli. "Are you very proud?" Shunjuli looked down at him and said coldly, "I don't need to be proud." He stretched out his flute, and a ball of white light burst out from the flute, lifting up the divine devil enchantment that trapped Luo Jiuchen. Chapter 2294. Luo Jiuchen's expression changed. "What are you doing?" He wanted to stand up, but as soon as he moved, he was injured by the invisible spell in the divine demon enchantment. He sat down again as if he had been scalded. Shunjuli was too lazy to answer him. Instead, he took action. With a light flick of the flute, he threw Luo Jiuchen into the green pool. Shunjuli used some spell to make the divine demon enchantment stick to the totem pole at the bottom of the pool. Luo Jiuchen's expression changed. "Shunjuli, what do you mean?" Shunjuli's voice was still calm as he said, "I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine." Luo Jiuchen, Ning Xiuma was also standing beside the pool. Although she couldn't see what was going on under the water, she knew what was going on from Shun Julie's actions and words. Her eyes lit up. The Almighty was standing up for her. Luo Jiuchen wanted to feed her to the array guardian beast, but now it was his turn. Let him have a taste of his own medicine. It would be ecstasy. The divine demon enchantment only blocked the inside, but not the outside. The outside could attack him normally, but they couldn't drag him out. There would be a good show to watch. Thank you, Almighty. Ning Xiuma gave Shun Julie a flying kiss. She smiled like a blooming flower. Shun Julie's expression did not change. He glanced at her and said, I'll be waiting for your gift. Ning Xiuma naturally knew what he meant by gift of thanks, and her heart skipped a beat. Almighty, you still look like a child. Is it really okay to tease a good woman like this? She suddenly had a mischievous thought. She hugged the Almighty and kissed him on the forehead. Here's the gift of thanks. Then she let go of him and stepped back. Okay, let's break the array now. Shun Julie raised his hand and rubbed his forehead where she had kissed him. This was not the gift he wanted, or it could be said that this was far from enough. In the future, he would make her give it to him with interest. He smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he took a step back and placed the white jade flute to his lips. When Ning Xiuma saw that he was completely prepared, she was finally relieved. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and she was like a graceful red butterfly shuttling through the zombie crowd. Her figure was as graceful as a fairy flying in the sky. Watching her break the formation was like watching a delightful dance in the sky. When all the green corpses were facing the center, Ning Xiuma leaped up. The red light in her hand instantly condensed, and with a thunderous force, she slammed it towards the totem pole. Following a thunderous rumble, the water in the green pool surged like waves, and the ground beneath his feet also shook as if there was an earthquake. A sharp and muffled low howl came from the bottom of the water, which sounded like the howl of an elephant. As the totem pole rose, a pair of blood-red wings with blue edges appeared first, followed by a bird head. What kind of bird was this? Fire phoenix? Ning Xiuma had a flash of doubt in her mind. Before she could finish her question, there were a series of popping sounds in the water, and 8 more heads appeared one after another. A total of 9 heads appeared in the water, and these heads formed a circle. Looking at the beautiful feathers on the heads, they looked a little like a phoenix, but there was no phoenix crown. The heads and faces looked a little like a human, with a pair of watery eyes, and only the mouths were sharp like an eagle's beak. 9 heads, 9-headed bird. Ghost chariot, the legendary ferocious bird with 9 heads and 9 mouths, and each mouth was a lethal weapon. Chapter 2295. Luo Jiuchen was really capable. He actually got so many ferocious beasts to guard the 4 cardinal points. Ning Xiuma knew that this thing was not easy to deal with. She gestured to the 6 people standing in the direction of the underworld and asked them to leave quickly. The 6 people also knew that this was not the time to show off. Before the bird really came out and the green corpse had not jumped out of the water, they all retreated out of the hall. After the ghost chariot bird emerged, it did not immediately jump out like other guardian beasts. Instead, it directly rushed back to the totem pole. Its huge body surrounded the totem pole, and its 9 sharp beaks pecked at the head on the totem pole together. The bird was huge. Under such a circle, it tightly surrounded the entire god and devil enchantment. There was no gap. Ning Xiuma stood in the distance and could not see what kind of attack Luo Jiuchen suffered in the enchantment. She only heard his uncontrollable groan in the rise and fall of the 9 bird heads. Obviously, the attack of the 9-headed bird made this demonic god suffer a lot. Every time the 9 heads of the ghost chariot rose and fell, it could bring a rain of blood, which looked strange and bloody. Ning Xiuma clenched her fingers. If Shun Julie had not rescued her in time, it would have been her who was pecked by the 9 heads of the ghost chariot at this moment. The ghost chariot attacked the god and devil enchantment for a full minute. This minute may not be much for others, but for the people who were being tortured, This minute was as long as a day. While Ning Xiuma was waiting for it, her heart suddenly moved. Looking at the speed of the ghost chariot eating people, it was quite fast, but it would take 1 or 2 minutes. When she broke the cardinal point in the north, the Taodai rushed out almost at the same time as the cardinal point was broken, and it did not stop at all. It did not look like it ate people before coming up. Could it be that the images Luo Jiuchen showed her at the beginning were actually fake? Yi Qianli and the others did not become sacrifices under the water. Everything was fabricated by Luo Jiuchen to stimulate her. The more she thought about it, the more likely it was. Luo Jiuchen, this pervert, had used all kinds of despicable means to force her to submit. Creating an illusion to make her feel guilty and blame herself was a piece of cake for him. Thinking that Yi Qianli and the others might still be alive, and that Yi Qianli probably did not die under her hands, the last haze in Ning Xiuma's heart dissipated. Blood continued to flow out of the God-Fiend barrier, and in the end, it almost dyed the green pond red. Ning Xiuma stood at the side and watched. She felt that the tables had turned. In this respect, Luo Jiuchen could be considered a man. After being tortured like this, he only snorted a few times and did not scream. Because Ghostkar was concentrating on getting Luo Jiuchen out of the enchantment, the resurrected green zombies attacked Ning Xiuma directly. However, before they could reach Ning Xiuma, the sound of a flute was heard. A strange tune that could not be described as pleasant to the ears spiraled in the hall. Those ferocious green-skinned zombies were instantly manipulated. They swayed back and forth in the hall like marionettes. They no longer attempted to attack Ning Xiuma, but instead started killing each other. Strange screams were heard frequently in the hall, and all kinds of rotten green mucus flew everywhere. Even the arms and legs of the green zombies flew out from time to time. It was a real mess. Ning Xiuma retreated to Shun Jiuli's side early to protect him. Once a green zombie approached, it would be slapped away by her sword. She looked at the green zombies fighting each other and breathed a sigh of relief. Her eyes could not help but turn back to Shun Jiuli. Chapter 2296. The Almighty's ability to control beasts was getting better and better. He could even control the zombies in an instant. This ability was indeed very practical. Once this incident was over, she would ask him to teach her this ability. Using this ability to kill enemies was much better than fighting with a sword and a stick. It was also much easier. Shun Jiuli stood beside her. He played the jade flute, and his robe fluttered in the wind. Although he still looked like a young boy, he had a free and easy attitude that made people admire him. This was her man. Even if he had turned into a baby, his aura was still incomparable. When Shun Jiuli arrived, there were all kinds of situations. The two of them did not even have a chance to have a good chat before they started to deal with all kinds of things. Now, Ning Xiuma finally had a moment of leisure. At this moment, she looked at Shun Jiuli beside her. Her heart was filled with joy. She could not wait to hug him again and feel everything about him. He was back. He was really back. It was not in a dream, nor was it 50,000 years in the past. He was really by her side. Yes, her son still did not know about this. If the little thing saw that his biological father was back, he would probably roll on the ground happily. Sigh, she actually wanted to do a somersault and roll on the ground. As for whether he was the Almighty from 50,000 years ago or the Almighty from this rebirth, he was still him. She did not care about it, as long as he was by her side. As long as he was by her and Yinma's side, it would be perfect. She really wanted to protect him. She did not want to let him have the slightest accident. Ning Xiuma suddenly realized that she actually had a kind of motherly brilliance in the reborn version of the Almighty. Perhaps Ning Xiuma looked at Shun Jiuli too attentively and passionately. Shun Jiuli glanced at her and then moved a few steps smoothly. The two of them were originally standing side by side, but when Shun Jiuli moved, the two of them were now facing each other. Shun Jiuli didn't stop playing the flute, but his eyes were fixed on her. His lips even curled up into a smile. Ning Xiuma didn't understand. She looked at him with question marks in her eyes. Shun Jiuli said lazily, "If you want to look, look carefully. Don't look secretly. Do you want me to give you a hug?" Of course, he used the Fu language to transmit his voice. Ning Shumo, she blushed and coughed. Great God, I actually want to hug you and hide you away. All right, when this matter is over, I'll let you hug and hide me. The smile in Shun Julie's eyes deepened. The Almighty was becoming more and more shameless. However, she liked it. She liked him no matter what. The two of them used the secret voice-sending method to tease each other. Ning Xuema's heart was bubbling with joy. However, she also knew that Shun Julie was playing the flute at this moment, so she didn't dare to disturb him too much. Her figure flashed, and she ran in front of him again. I won't talk to you anymore. I'll protect you. Why hasn't the nine-headed bird left the totem pole? Luo Jiuchen should have been pecked into a skeleton by it, right? The nine-headed bird's 9 heads pecked together like a windmill. After such a long time, even an elephant would have been pecked into a skeleton. Luo Jiuchen should be about the same, right? Just now, there was blood and flesh flying everywhere. Just as she finished speaking, the nine-headed bird suddenly flapped its wings. There was a long and noisy cry, and it finally flew out of the water and appeared above the hall. Chapter 2297. When it came out, Ning Shuma saw its whole body clearly. Its body was streamlined like a fire phoenix. When it spread its wings, it almost covered the entire space. The mouths of the 9 heads were all dripping with blood. It looked very bloody. When it left, Ning Shuma subconsciously looked at the celestial demon enchantment that was stuck on the totem pole. Luo Jiuchen was only left with a skeleton. There was no flesh on it. Obviously, he was eaten by the 9-headed bird. Ning Shuma looked at the skeleton in a daze. Luo Jiuchen died just like that? It seemed a little too simple. The celestial demon enchantment could trap souls. Even if a person died and only had a skeleton left, the soul should be attached to the skeleton. On the other side, Shun Julie's flute played a few times. The 9-headed bird was obviously controlled by the flute. It wanted to fly down and peck Shun Julie, but after the flute played, it went to chase the green-skinned zombies. Its 9 heads rose and fell like lightning, pecking the green-skinned zombies all over the ground. Everything was going according to plan. The 6 people from the underworld who were watching the battle outside the hall finally breathed a sigh of relief. They just had to wait for the 9-headed bird to peck the green-skinned zombies and then die of poison. However, Ning Shuma felt that things were going so smoothly that it was a bit strange. She opened her heaven's eye and looked at the skeleton. Then, she saw a few remnant souls wandering on the skeleton. Ning Shuma remembered that Luo Jiuchen once said that the souls of people who were eaten by this kind of guardian beast would be torn into pieces. If there was no special method, it would be difficult for them to gather and form again. The remnant souls were a little red. They were scattered here and there. Obviously, they had been torn into pieces and could not gather into a human shape. Only Luo Jiuchen was trapped in the celestial demon enchantment. The remnant souls on the skeleton naturally belonged to Luo Jiuchen. He was really torn into pieces by the guardian beast that he made himself. He could no longer do evil. Ning Shuma finally let out a sigh of relief. She felt much more relaxed now that she had gotten rid of this big problem. She had been standing by Shun Julie's side the whole time, forming a defensive formation with him. At this moment, seeing that Shun Julie had completely controlled the whole situation with his flute, she felt relieved. She watched the fierce battle between the 9-headed bird and the green-skinned zombie for a while, but she didn't notice anything unusual. Only then did he turn his gaze towards the fiend god barrier. The wisps of remnant souls within the barrier were drifting about. From time to time, they would be struck by the flickering talismans within the barrier and disappear with a creak. From the looks of it, it wouldn't take long for the soul inside to be completely devoured. At that time, Luo Jiuchen would truly vanish. She stared at it for a moment and felt that a wisp of remnant soul was not normal. It was shaped like a bird's wing. Although Luo Jiuchen was a demigod, his original body had always been a real human. How could he have wings? He was not an angel. The more Ning Shuma thought about it, the more she felt that something was amiss. She took a few steps towards the god-devil barrier, wanted to take a closer look. "Be careful," someone shouted out. Almost at the same time, Ning Xuema heard a sudden gust of wind above her head. She instinctively swung her sword above her head. With a loud clang, it was as if she had cut a piece of fine iron. Countless sparks flew everywhere. At the same time Ning Xuema brandished her sword, she abruptly rolled away. While she was rolling, she saw a sharp and bloody mouth with countless fangs close at hand. It was the ghost chariot's mouth. Chapter 2298. Ning Xuema's body stiffened, probably because she was too shocked. In that short moment, the ghost chariot's mouth was about to close on her body. In the next moment, Ning Xuema had already fallen into the ghost chariot's mouth. Several of the ghost chariot's fangs were embedded in her body, but did not tear her apart. Instead, it held her in its mouth and flew up. "Let go of her." Shun Juli's expression changed, and he suddenly flew up. His sword flashed with a bright white light, and he slashed at the bird's head that was holding Ning Xuema in its mouth. The nine-headed bird let out a long cry, flapped its wings, and suddenly flew up. With a crash, the entire hall's roof collapsed, and the nine-headed bird flew out in a cloud of dust. With a flash of white light, Shun Juli chased after it and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The 6 people from the underworld were speechless. The 6 of them did not expect such a change to happen when they had the upper hand. The Devil Master was taken away by the nine-headed bird. At that moment, there were only 2 or 3 green-skinned zombies left in the hall. Without the control of the flute, these zombies regained their ferocity and rushed toward the 6 people in the tunnel. "Kill them even if you have to die. Don't let any of them escape." General Lung finally came back to his senses and hurriedly ordered. Only when the zombies and the nine-headed bird were all killed could the array be completely broken. They could not do anything to the nine-headed bird, but they could still deal with the green-skinned zombies. Under the vast sky, in the clouds, the sound of the flute was as sharp as a knife, shuttling through the air. The nine-headed bird in front of them was originally fleeing as fast as lightning, but under the disturbance of the flute, it began to fly crookedly. Its 9 heads fiercely pulled in 9 different directions, as if all of them wanted to take the lead. Unfortunately, they couldn't compete with the head holding Ning Xuema in its mouth. Their main direction of flight was still forward. However, because the 9 heads were not in the same direction, its flying speed was naturally greatly reduced. In a moment, Shun Juli caught up with it. Just as Shun Juli was about to catch up to it, he flicked his fingers and set up 6 barriers around the 9-headed bird, sealing off all its escape routes. "Luo Jiuchen, put her down," Shun Juli said in a low voice. The 9-headed bird's body slightly stiffened. The bird head that was holding Ning Xuema in its mouth looked at Shun Juli. Suddenly, it let out a muffled laugh. "Shun Juli, you can actually recognize me like this?" Unknowingly, he had admitted his identity. Even the head of the bird flashed with purple light, and a human face appeared. That face belonged to Luo Jiuchen. Clearly, its soul was attached to one of the heads of the 9-headed bird. The 9-headed bird was originally controlled by 9 heads. Every time it flew, its body would spin like a windmill. Luo Jiuchen's soul was very strong. Once he controlled one of the heads, he naturally had the absolute control, so his flying speed was amazing. The speed of the 9-headed bird was famous in the 6 realms. Shun Juli's martial arts had not fully recovered. If he chased after it with his strength, it would take a long time. In order to catch up with it as soon as possible, Shun Juli used the flute to control the other 8 heads of the 9-headed bird. This slowed it down and finally caught it. The moment he intercepted the 9-headed bird, his gaze fell on the big mouth holding Ning Xuema in its mouth. Ning Xuema's body was stuck in the bird's mouth. A few of its sharp teeth were already embedded in her body. She was motionless, and he didn't know if she had fainted or if she had already died. Chapter 2299. If he tried to snatch her by force, her body would probably be torn apart. "Luo Jiuchen, if you let go of her, I can let you live." Shun Juli spoke again. The bird head laughed loudly. "Shun Juli, if you have the ability, then snatch her back from my mouth. Step back, or I'll bite her in half." It bit down slightly, and its fangs pierced deeper into Ning Shuima's body. Her body trembled, and blood dripped from her body into the nine-headed bird's mouth, so fresh and beautiful. As expected of the blood of a Buddha and a demon, it's a great supplement for me. "Shunjuli, do you want her dead or alive?" The nine-headed bird's eyes burned with a bloodthirsty passion. "Don't hurt her. What do you want?" Shunjuli clenched his fists. "If you want her to live, you have to die." The nine-headed bird's voice was cold. Shunjuli's gaze fell on the bird's head. "What if I say no? Then I can only swallow her. Letting her die in my stomach is not a bad idea. If anything happens to her, Luo Jiochin, I'll turn you into ashes." "Ha! It's not a bad idea to drag her down with me when I'm turned into ashes. Shunjuli, I'll count to 3. If you don't make a decision, she'll become my food." 1. In order to increase the intimidation effect, the bird's beak bit down again, causing more blood to flow out. Shunjuli's knuckles turned pale, and he said in a low voice, "How do I know you won't go back on your words?" "Shunjuli, you worry too much. I like her so much. As long as you die, she'll be mine sooner or later. I won't take her life. After you die, I'll take good care of her. You're using this nine-headed bird's body to dote on her?" Shunjuli was particularly talkative this time. "Humph, the body is just an external object. As long as my soul is complete, why should I waste my effort on this nine-headed bird?" The bird's eyes suddenly fell on Shunjuli's body. It seemed to have thought of something, and its eyes lit up. "Your body is not bad. After you die, I can possess your body. That way, she might be able to accept me faster." "All right, stop wasting time. Shunjuli, as long as I don't die, this array will not be broken, and no one will be able to help you. You'd better make a decision soon." 2. He counted the second number. Shunjuli lowered his eyes and didn't say anything. Instead, he stretched out his hand and a silver-white sword appeared. He gripped the hilt of the sword, and his gaze fell on the nine-headed bird again. "Luo Jiochin, don't regret this." The nine-headed bird laughed. "What's there to regret if you kill yourself?" Its eyes stared at Shunjuli's sword. "Is this the Heavenly Path sword?" "So what if it is? I heard that those who are killed by the Heavenly Path sword have no chance of reincarnation." "Shunjuli, if this sword kills you, it won't lose this ability. Now, stab this sword into your own heart. I know that the Heavenly Path sword will only display its true ability when it stabs there." After all, Luo Jiochin and Shunjuli had been enemies for so many years, so he was quite knowledgeable. "All right." Shunjuli finally responded with a single word. He raised his wrist, and the treasured sword was raised. The sword drew a flower in the air and stabbed toward his own chest. Ka! There was a muffled sound of flesh being pierced, and blood spurted out. It shot out like a flower. A large bird's head flew into the air along with the blood. Chapter 2300. At the same time, a silver-white ray of light flew out like a silver dragon and wrapped around the bird's head. With a twist, the bird's head let out a shrill cry and was turned into ashes by the silver-white ray of light. "Great God, your sword is so cool." The nine-headed bird lost one of its heads and shivered in pain. On the other bird's head, a woman in red stood against the wind. The sky splitter's sword in her hand was still dripping with blood. Her smile was more beautiful than the spring flowers. "Idiot, you took too much of a risk." Shunjuli's gaze landed on her. He wanted to swallow her with his gaze. "If I didn't do that, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to kill him." "Great God, I didn't tell you beforehand, but you actually cooperated with me so well. I'll give you a thumbs up." Ning Shuima smiled proudly. "Shunjuli, it turned out that when Ning Shuima looked at Luo Jiochin's skeleton in the Divine Devil enchantment, she sharply saw that there was a remnant soul with wings. The only one with wings was the ghost chariot. Ning Shuima immediately thought that the remnant soul belonged to the ghost chariot. To be exact, it belonged to one of the heads of the ghost chariot. The ghost chariot was clearly pecking at its head. How did its remnant soul get squeezed out? The only explanation was that Luo Jiuchen risked his life in the Divine Devil enchantment. When one of the heads of the ghost chariot reached in to peck at him, he used some method to squeeze his soul into the ghost chariot's head. Then, he pulled out a wisp of the ghost chariot's soul and used it as a cover on his skeleton. Ning Xuema's thoughts turned very quickly. She thought of this possibility almost instantly. The ghost chariot was placed in the enchantment by Luo Jiuchen. There might be something between him and the ghost chariot that allowed their souls to exchange. Once Luo Jiuchen successfully possessed the ghost body, he would immediately take over the thoughts of the ghost car's other heads and completely control it. The ghost chariot was originally a ferocious bird, and Luo Jiuchen was like a cockroach that could not be killed. After he merged with the ghost chariot, he could escape directly. The ghost chariot was the fastest flying animal in the world. Once it escaped, it would be extremely difficult to catch up. To kill a tiger, one had to kill it. To let a tiger return to the mountain was the worst. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. Ning Xiuma instantly understood the relationship between the two. Therefore, when she saw the ghost chariot trying to pick her up, she took the opportunity to beat it at its own game and allowed it to bite her. She had the blood of the Devil Buddha. It was said that her blood was the opium poppy of all demonic creatures. It could make demonic creatures unknowingly poisoned and even soften their outer armor. The moment Ning Xiuma was picked up by the ghost chariot, her soul came out of her body and attached to the other head of the nine-headed bird. She used hand gestures to tell Shun Juli to stall for time. Then, she began to block the fusion of the head that Luo Jiuchen was attached to with the other heads of the ghost chariot, so as to prevent Luo Jiuchen from attaching to the other heads after cutting off one of its heads. The ghost chariot had copper skin and iron bones. Even the most powerful magical weapon could not hurt it at all. And because Shun Juli was in the enchantment, he had recovered less than 1/10 of his power. If he simply used the heavenly sword to cut the ghost chariot, he would not be able to hurt it. This was also the main reason why Luo Jiuchen was not afraid that Shun Juli would play tricks. He had put all his energy on guard against Shun Juli in front of him. How could he have thought that Ning Xiuma was the one who really wanted his life? After Ning Xiuma was done with all this, she used the cicada shedding technique to replace her original body from the ghost chariot's mouth, leaving only a substitute. Chapter 23:01. Luo Jiuchen's sense of touch was blocked, so he didn't feel anything at all. Ning Xiuma's body returned to the top of the head of the ghost carriage. While Shun Juli attracted Luo Jiuchen's attention, she took the opportunity to cut off the head with her sword. Luo Jiuchen did not expect Ning Xiuma to have such a trick up her sleeve. As expected, he fell for it. Ning Xiuma sliced off the head of the ghost head with a single slash of her sword. Shun Juli took advantage of the situation and used the Heaven's Path sword to purify the head completely. The two of them were as fast as lightning, and their cooperation was flawless. They didn't give Luo Jiuchen any time to react. It was a pity that he prepared so many escape routes and made so many preparations, but in the end, he didn't use much. He lost his life just like that. It was his retribution. Ning Xiuma stood on the neck of the nine-headed bird that was spinning in pain. She still couldn't believe it. Was Luo Jiuchen really dead? Would he never appear again? The nine-headed bird lost a head, and only then did it feel the pain. It was so painful that it spun in the air like a windmill, and it almost shook Ning Xiuma off. A silver-white light lit up in the sky. It flashed a few times around the nine-headed bird. In a shrill cry, the birds' heads were cut off one by one. After a while, the nine-headed bird couldn't find its head anymore. Blood spurted out from its 9 orifices. Not only that, it was also stabbed in the chest and finally fell from the sky. It was unknown what spell Shun Juli used when he killed it. Such a big nine-headed bird fell into the atmosphere like a meteor and burned violently. Before it fell to the ground, it was burned to ashes, the wind blew, and the sky was clean. The nine-headed bird was killed by Shun Juli. At this moment, Ning Xiuma was standing leisurely on a cloud, and there was a light green enchantment around her. It was a protective enchantment with healing effects. According to Shun Julie, it was specially used to heal the wounds caused by the nine-headed bird's bite. She had thrown caution to the wind just now. In order to use the blood poison on the nine-headed bird, she had removed her protective barrier and allowed the bird's teeth to stab her a few times. There were a few bloody wounds on her body. Originally, she did not care about this injury. However, Shun Julie insisted on wrapping her up like a dumpling in the green enchantment barrier. Only then did he deal with the bird. It felt good to be protected. Ning Shuman was satisfied, but she still subconsciously looked around in the air, afraid that Luo Jiuchen would suddenly come back to life in some corner and resurface again, making his presence known in front of her. Looking for what? A hand held hers. Although the hand was small, the palm was dry and warm, as if it could give people the strongest support. Did God really die that time? It won't jump out again, right? Ning Shuman asked subconsciously. It wasn't that she didn't feel safe, but that guy was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed no matter what. It had already formed a deep-rooted feeling of a cockroach in her heart. Therefore, she wasn't so sure she could kill him. Shun Julie stood beside her. Seeing that her big eyes were still looking around, he quietly pulled her. Ning Shuman stumbled and fell directly onto him. If he pulled her like this normally, she would fall directly into his arms, and he would hug her tightly. Now that he pulled her, she hugged him tightly like a mother hen protecting her chick. Shun Julie. Ning Shuman was also stunned. She lowered her head and looked at Shun Julie in her arms. Such a tender, almighty. Shun Julie was probably not used to this kind of hug. There was a suspicious blush on his white, jade-like face. Chapter 23:02. However, she liked his dominance. She liked it so much. Even though he had shrunk, his kiss was still as passionate as before. It made her forget that he was still a little boy. It was as if he was still a little boy. Hiss. Another one. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of discussion and applause grew louder and louder. It gradually turned into cheers. Ning Shuman was shocked. She finally came back to her senses and looked down. She was slightly stunned. It was no longer a green tropical forest below. Instead, it was a bustling street. People who had been reborn were running around and cheering. Even Pluto and his subordinates were there. At this moment, these people were looking up at her and him, who were floating in the air. It was obvious that the deadly bewitching array had been broken and everything had returned to normal. She actually performed a kissing show in public, and she almost lost her soul from being kissed by Shoda. Ning Shuman felt her face turn red instantly. Even her ears were burning. She pulled Shun Julie and flew up into the sky. Ha! Devil Master, I wish you and the Divine Lord a happy marriage forever. The Netherworld King had obviously heard about the return of the Divine Lord from General Lung and the others. However, he did not expect the Divine Lord and the Devil Lord to kiss passionately in midair. Although he was stunned, he also felt warm. If it were not for these two people, the underworld would be completely doomed this time. He and his subordinates were full of gratitude. At this moment, they could not help but kneel down and congratulate them sincerely. I wish you and the Divine Lord a happy marriage forever. The people of the underworld also congratulated them loudly. Their cheers were thunderous. Above the clouds, Shun Julie listened to the cheers below and looked at her with a faint smile. Are you shy? He was a little boy, but his gaze was so real that it made Ning Shuman's heart beat wildly again. However, she had always been a stubborn person. Although her face was still as red as a tomato, she acted like a little girl. She put her arm on Shun Julie's shoulder and giggled. I don't want them to say that I took advantage of a little boy. I'm saving you some face. Shun Julie, Ning Shuman's entire body, was leaning on his body. Although he was still a little short, as long as she could smell his scent again, she would be very happy. She also had the desire to hug his waist tightly and never let go. Shun Julie turned his body slightly and cleverly got rid of her posture of hugging his little brother. He moved his wrist again and pulled her over. He whispered in her ear, I'll allow you to be frivolous one more time. Then he kissed her again. The position he was standing in was very clever. He was slightly taller than her, so the kiss was especially powerful. The two of them were reunited after going through a life and death situation. Their chests were filled with intense emotions. They wanted nothing more than to fuse with each other and never be separated again. Dong dong dong. Bang bang bang. Whose heart was beating like a drum. Whose heartbeat was messing up. They kissed so passionately that they wanted nothing more than to press each other into their bodies. Shun Julie only let go of her when both of them were out of breath. Ning Xiuma was satisfied, but she could not help but put her hand on her forehead. Was it really okay to be kissed by a little boy so frequently? Fortunately, they were high up in the sky and no one saw it. Otherwise, they would think that she, the Devil Lord, was a pedophile. Just as she thought of this, she suddenly seemed to notice something. She suddenly turned her head and looked in a direction. Chapter 23:03. Not far away, a man was standing against the wind. He was wearing a black and scary ghost mask on his face. He was wearing a light yellow brocade robe with a strange jade pendant hanging on his waist. He was standing there with a golden ruler in his hand and was looking at them. Although he was wearing a mask and did not show his face, Ning Xiuma could feel that this person was looking at them. That gaze was so penetrating that it was almost impossible to ignore it. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. When did this person come? She had always been sensitive, but she did not notice it in advance. Apparently, Shun Jili had noticed that person as well. He frowned slightly. He noticed that this person had just flown in from the west and seemed to be passing by. When Shun Jili and Ning Xiuma ascended to the sky, they set up a transparent enchantment. They could see nothing outside the enchantment, but people passing by outside would not see them. Therefore, Shun Jili did not take this person's arrival seriously. He thought that this person would go directly, but he did not expect that he would stop not far away and look in their direction. Obviously, he had already seen them in the enchantment. Although Shun Jili's kung fu had not recovered, the enchantment he set up was not a small matter. Even if Yi, Tianli, and the others came, they would not be able to see this enchantment. Who was this person? He actually had such kung fu. He looked back at that person indifferently, as if he was weighing that person's weight. That person seemed to smile and cupped his hands in his direction. Sorry to disturb you. You can continue. His voice had obviously been altered. Although it was pleasant to the ears, it had a mechanical feel to it. It also carried a sense of laziness, as if nothing was bothering him. After saying this, he did not wait for the two people to speak. His figure flashed and disappeared into the depths of the sea of clouds like a ball of pale golden light. This person came suddenly and left quickly. He did not have any evil intentions, as if he was just passing by. Who is he? Ning Xiuma could not help but ask. Shun Jili pondered for a moment. Have you ever heard of a mysterious person who doesn't care about worldly affairs, but appears and disappears unpredictably? Ning Xiuma nodded. Could it be him? Most likely. Shun Jili's eyes flashed with a touch of contemplation. When this person was standing there just now, he looked amiable, but his aura was restrained. Wherever he went, even the dense clouds instantly scattered far away. This level of skill was probably not much weaker than his peak. Ning Xiuma's current skill was also extremely high. She could also see that this person was not ordinary. She looked in the direction that the person disappeared and was slightly lost in thought. Shun Jili suddenly tightened his grip on her hand. He turned her around and looked at her sideways. I think you should be looking at me. Hadn't he just reunited with her? Shouldn't her gaze be fixed on him? Although that mysterious man was not bad-looking, it was fine for this lass to take a few glances at him, but she was actually entranced by him. Ning Xiuma did not pay attention to Shun Jili's emotions. She was still immersed in her thoughts. She rubbed her eyebrows. Almighty, is this person also like a demigod? Luo Jiuchen is dead this time. Will this person be the next demigod? Shun Jili said, You think too much. Well, she was a little paranoid because of that bastard Luo Jiuchen. Chapter 23:04. This person was wearing a ghost mask and was very secretive. Even his voice was disguised. He was indeed worthy of the title of Mysterious Man. Moreover, this person seemed to be just passing by and did not have any bad intentions. Her attention finally returned to Shinjuli. She simply pulled him to sit in the clouds and chatted with him. Their bodies were very close together. Ning Xiuema actually wanted to sit in his arms, but in view of his cute appearance, it was a little scary for such a big person like her to sit in his arms. Then it was her turn to hug him. She raised her arms and wanted to hug him, but Shinjuli stretched out his hand and pulled her to lie on his lap. Let me see your injuries first. This position is not bad. Ning Xiuema lay on his lap, took the opportunity to roll over and hugged his waist. Smelling his scent is so satisfying. Ning Xiuema was like a satisfied cat, allowing Shinjuli to inspect her body. The injuries on her body were almost healed, but in front of him, she still wanted to be delicate. So, under the touch of his fingertips, she occasionally hissed and looked at him eagerly. She pouted and said, "It hurts." Her eyes were watery, and her lips were red. Shinjuli's heart skipped a beat when he saw her coquettish look. He wished he could press her under his body. However, his kung fu had not recovered, and most importantly, his appearance had not recovered. He felt pressured to have sex with her. Although his appearance was that of an 11 or 12-year-old boy, some of his physical functions were still that of an adult. It was not a problem for him to do things like a man, but he could not get over himself. However, he would not let her wait for too long. His recovery was just around the corner. If you were afraid of pain, then why did you use such a dangerous method just now? Shinjuli's voice was slightly cold. This girl was too desperate just now. The moment he saw her fall into the nine-headed bird's mouth, his heart almost stopped beating. He almost used that method regardless of the consequences. Although he was reprimanding her, his hands were gentle as he applied ointment on her wounds. On one side, Ning Xiuema was enjoying his massage, while on the other hand, she was unconvinced and refuted that method was the best. Otherwise, I'm afraid that bastard wouldn't have died. She flipped over on his lap and hugged one of his arms. You don't know. That bastard's evil cultivation method is much more powerful than before. He is very difficult to deal with, especially in our current state. If we want to kill him completely, it will be even more difficult. The demon god enchantment only caught him off guard and whittled away some of his power, but it is not fatal. Moreover, he used an evil technique to possess the body of the nine-headed bird. Once he succeeds in possessing the body of the nine-headed bird, who knows how many twists and turns will occur. That is why Her long eyelashes fluttered as she endlessly analyzed the pros and cons. Her analysis was clear and logical. In front of outsiders, she looked lazy, mature, and cold. But in front of him, she was like a little girl. She laughed and cried as she pleased. Julie finished applying the ointment for her, cleaned his hands, and played with her eyelashes. Her eyelashes were thick, dense, and curly. When they rubbed against his palm, it was as if the itch could reach his heart. He listened to her analysis and smiled without saying a word. In fact, even if she did not use such a dangerous method, he still had a way to kill Luo Jiuqin. It was just that that method was a little hindrance to his divine body. However, since he had the intention to kill Luo Jiuqin, he would naturally use all kinds of methods to get rid of him completely. Chapter 23:05. That person had really touched his bottom line. Ning Xiuema thought of her performance just now and felt a little proud. She looked at him proudly and said, "Almighty, I'm awesome, right? Awesome. My Xiuema is the best." Shun Julie was not stingy with his praise. Ning Xiuema's lips curled up like a bean pod. She liked it when he said, "My Xiuema." It made her feel a sense of belonging. She began to pull his hand down from her face and played with his fingers. Her voice became even more proud as she said, "I'm so awesome. It's your fortune to be able to marry me." This girl liked to boast and praise herself, but it was not annoying at all. Shun Julie slowly switched to his other hand and flicked her forehead. "You're wrong." And Ning Xiuema raised her eyebrows high. Shun Julie gracefully kissed her eyelashes. "It's my fortune from all my previous lives." Ning Xiuma's eyelashes curved like crescent moons. That's more like it. She had been disappointed too many times and despaired too many times. Now that happiness had come too quickly, even if she was lying beside him, she still felt like she was dreaming. Almighty, do you think this is a dream? She pulled on his finger and wanted to bite it to test if it was real. Shunjili did not say anything and pulled her little hand over. He bit her tender white palm and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Does it hurt? Doesn't this feel more real to you? Ning Xiuma felt a little pain in her palm, but her eyes narrowed with a smile. Her senses were very sharp. This proved that it was not a dream. The joy in her heart surged in her chest, making her have the urge to jump up and do a few somersaults. So happy. She was so happy that she wanted to find someone to share it with. She seemed to have thought of something as she suddenly jumped up and pulled him up as well. Great God, our son is still waiting in Mo Palace. I'll take you to see him. He'll be so happy when he sees you. You don't know how much he misses you these days. He often cries behind your back and even calls out Father in his dreams. My son will definitely go crazy with joy. When Ning Xiuma thought of her son, she couldn't hold it in any longer. She had told her son that she would be back in 3 days. It had already been 3 days. That brat must be waiting anxiously in Mo Palace. Shunjili, on the other hand, stood motionless. Ning Xiuma tried to pull at him, but to no avail. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. Guru, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. She was so focused on being happy that she forgot to test whether this great god was the great god who had transmigrated 50,000 years ago, or the great god who had experienced 3 lifetimes with her. If he had traveled directly from 50,000 years ago, he would not have much of an impression of little Nianma. At most, he would have heard about him from Gu Shijio. Great God, do you still remember? Nianma. Shunjili smiled faintly. How can I not remember my son? She was happy and asked again. Do you mean that you have heard about him from me, or that you have taken care of him and loved him? Shunjili was still sitting there with one arm on his knee. He looked lazy. What do you think? This girl was obviously trying to get information from him. He would not tell her. Ning Xiuma was speechless. Shunjuli's eyes were as deep as a well. What kind of person do you want me to be? The great god was really good at kicking the ball around. Ning Xiuma's veins on her forehead twitched slightly. She laughed and said, It doesn't matter. I want both. Chapter 23:06. She raised her hand to pull him again. Let's go see our son. No matter what, he's still your son. Guaranteed. You have to love him. Shunjili finally got up, but he held her hand. The kid is not in Mo Palace. Let's go. I will take you to see him. He must be anxious. With a wave of his sleeve, he broke a wizardry barrier and flew in a certain direction. Ning Xiuma's doubts could be heard in the air. If he is not in Mo Palace, where is he? I told him to wait in Mo Palace. Why did you set up a wizardry barrier? The Heavenly Lost Stone felt that it was confused by little Nianma. From a moment Shunjili left, the kid kept walking around in the crystal hall. One moment, he wanted to go out, and the next moment, he ran to the crystal ball to watch. Later on, even Shunjili disappeared into thin air on that street. Hence, this brat became even more impatient and started to run around in circles. More importantly, he was noisy. This child was probably afraid of losing his parents. After waiting for 2 hours and not seeing his parents come out, he began to tear up. He looked as if he was about to cry because he was abandoned. From time to time, he would hit the crystal wall and ask to let him out. He did not stop for a moment. The Heavenly Lost Stone wanted to knock him out. As time passed, the little guy became more and more agitated. The Heavenly Lost Stone could not help but try to communicate with him. It had no other choice but to give it a try. It did not expect the little guy to see it. He even understood it. This was also beyond the Heavenly Lost Stone's expectation. It could only communicate with one guardian, but now it could communicate with 3 people. Was this family too abnormal, or was there something wrong with the Heavenly Lost Stone? The Heavenly Lost Stone was puzzled. However, it was good to be able to communicate with the little guy. It could try to reason with him and make him quiet down. Although it was a stone, it was also a cold stone. It was still a little afraid of noise. Unexpectedly, the little guy was only quiet for 3 seconds because of the shock. Then, he asked a series of questions. Who are you? How can you talk in my head? Why have I never seen you before? Are my father and mother all right? Why are they not back yet? Is it dangerous in there? Little Nianma bombarded it with dozens of questions. The Heavenly Lost Stone felt that it was not in a good mood. No one knew how much time had passed. Just when the Heavenly Lost Stone was about to hit the wall due to little Nianma's nagging, a human figure finally appeared in the crystal. It was Ning Xiuma and Shun Jiuli. And the moment they appeared, it was a hot kiss scene. Little Nianma was still an inexperienced child. He was surprised to see his parents, but he was also puzzled. What are they doing? After the Heavenly Lost Stone glanced at it, it immediately activated some sort of function to shield the crystal ball, turning it into an ordinary crystal ball. Little Nianma was anxious. His parents had just come out, and he had not seen them clearly. He circled the crystal ball, knocking here and there, trying to restore it. Of course, while he was busy, he didn't forget to ask the Heavenly Tao Stone about the reason. The Heavenly Tao Stone simply pretended to be dead, not even spitting out a comma. Little Nianma was so anxious that he almost flattened the crystal ball. The crystal ball flashed a few times and lit up again. Little Nianma was overjoyed. His eyes were wide open. He sat there and stared at the crystal ball, watching the images gradually appear on it. Then he was stunned. The crystal ball showed a sky with a few white clouds floating in it, but there was no one in sight. The mighty immortal and Xiuma had been suffering for so long, so they wrote a few sweet scenes. The most romantic thing I can think of is to stay in your arms until the end of time. The most romantic thing I can think of is to be with you all the time, giving me flowers with monthly tickets. Moi. Chapter 2307. Little Nianma was very puzzled. He adjusted the crystal ball a few more times and saw the streets. He saw the bustling crowd and all kinds of vendors. The originally ghost street had returned to its usual bustling state. However, his parents were nowhere to be seen. The Heavenly Lost Stone was also a little puzzled. It also secretly adjusted the crystal ball's position. As long as Shun, Jiuli, and little Nianma were nearby, it should be able to see them. However, it still saw a blue sky and white clouds. There was not even a bird flying in the sky. What was going on? The Heavenly Lost Stone was also puzzled. When it was about to adjust the angle again, little Nianma suddenly shouted, "Someone is up there! Hey, who is this person? He is wearing a yellow robe. Is he the Emperor?" The Heavenly Lost Stone looked inside and saw a man in a light yellow robe flying over. The man seemed to have seen something. He was facing one direction and stopped. Because he was wearing a mask on his face, little Nianma could not see his face clearly. He only felt that the man had a very good figure and an extraordinary temperament. The man was originally looking in one direction. Suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something and turned to look at them. His gaze was tangible, as if he could see through the crystal ball and look at little Nianma. Shin Nianma's little heart skipped a beat. He opened his mouth slightly. Fortunately, the man turned his head again and nodded slightly in one direction. He said, "Sorry to disturb you. You can continue." Then, he turned into a light golden stream and disappeared without a trace. Little Nianma was very puzzled. Who was the man talking to? He only saw big white clouds in that direction, but he did not see anyone. The man looked casual, but his aura was not small. Even the Heavenly Lost Stone had an inexplicable feeling in its heart when it saw him. Fortunately, the man came and went quickly. In the blink of an eye, his shadow was gone. Therefore, the Heavenly Lost Stone suppressed the strange feeling in its heart and focused on turning the crystal ball again and again, trying to find the two people. While he was busy, the silhouettes of the two people suddenly appeared on the crystal ball out of thin air. The two of them were holding each other's hands as they rushed over at lightning speed. From Ning Xiuma's question, the Heavenly Lost Stone finally understood why it could not see them just now. It turned out that Shun Jiuli wanted to be intimate with his wife and didn't want others to see them. so he set up a barrier. The heavenly lost stone heaved a sigh of relief. Some of the scenes were indeed not suitable for children. The divine Lord finally remembered that his son was staring at the crystal ball and knew to cover it up. "Mother! Mother!" Little Nyinma cheered excitedly. The heavenly Tao stone was a little puzzled after hearing him call out a few times. Finally, it couldn't help but refresh the screen. "Why don't you call me Daddy?" Little Nyinma paused and looked at Shun Julie in the crystal ball. He looks like my brother." She was still a little uncertain. "Is he really my father? Could he be her brother?" Heavenly Tao stone. Suddenly, it had the urge to watch the show. It wondered how the Divine Lord would react when little Nyinma called him brother. That's not right. They were coming in the direction of it. Was the Supreme Divinity trying to bring his wife into the heavenly Tao stone to see his son? What would it become then? Where was his dignity? The heavenly lost stone made a prompt decision and immediately ran away. Little Nyinma was jumping around when suddenly the crystal hall under him spun at a high speed. Chapter 23:08. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and immediately hugged the crystal pillar next to him. The heavenly lost stone was running too fast. Even with his kung fu, little Nyinma was still dizzy from the shaking. If his arms and legs were not wrapped around the crystal pillar, he would have rolled around the hall like a rubber ball. What are you doing? Why are you running?" Little Nyinma shouted. Before he could finish his sentence, the heavenly lost stone suddenly braked, and little Nyinma almost flew out. What was wrong with the stone? Little Nyinma looked up and was about to say something. Suddenly, his eyes were fixed on the crystal ball next to him. He shouted happily, "Mother!" His mother was standing outside, and of course, the boy who seemed to be his father was standing side by side with his mother. Ning Xiuma did not expect that Shun Julie would bring her to see her son. He said that he wanted to bring her to see her son, but he actually used the earth escape technique. She was confused. When she was about to ask, Shun Julie only said, "You will know when you get there." Ning Xiuma simply didn't ask any more questions. She only followed him underground at lightning speed. After a while, Shun Julie stopped at a place with her, as if he was waiting for something. She looked at the gray rock layer around her, and did not see anything unusual. She was a little surprised and wanted to ask why the Almighty brought her here. However, before she could speak, there was a vibration under her feet. Then, she saw a white stone rolling toward her at lightning speed. Wherever it went, all the rocks automatically made way for it. The stone looked very familiar. It seemed to be the heavenly lost stone. Ning Xiuma never thought that she would meet it here. Even more so, she didn't think that it would have such a panicked appearance as if it was running for its life. Therefore, she jumped out and blocked the heavenly lost stone, forcing it to stop. "The heavenly lost stone?" Ning Xiuma asked. "It is not me." The heavenly lost stone subconsciously replied. It was also very bitter in its heart. Shouldn't these two people be chasing after it? Why did it appear in front of him? With its terrifyingly precise calculation ability, if these two people had rushed to where it was just now, discovered that it was gone, and then chased after it by following its tracks, it should have already run back to Mo Palace. However, it did not expect that these two people would not act according to common sense at all. They directly intercepted it, as if they already knew that it was going to escape. Ning Xiuma couldn't help but laugh when she saw how the stone was trying to hide itself. "Heavenly Tao Stone, why are you here? Shouldn't you be in the Fanteon Palace?" The Heavenly Tao Stone. It was also at a loss for words. Ning Xiuma didn't get a reply from the Heavenly Tao Stone. She finally remembered why she was here. She tugged on the Great God's sleeve and asked, "Great God, aren't we looking for our son?" Before Shun Julie could answer, the heavenly Tao stone in front of him suddenly flashed with white light, and a whirlpool appeared. Then, a person was pushed out from the whirlpool. "Mother!" That person cried out in joy and threw himself into her arms like a cannonball. Ning Xiuma. She naturally recognized her son and subconsciously hugged him tightly. Then, She looked at the heavenly Tao stone that had returned to its original state with a face full of disbelief. How did her son run out from the heavenly Tao stone's stomach? What happened when she was not in Mo Palace for a few days? Could the heavenly Tao stone's stomach hold a person? Could it be that the heavenly Tao stone was female? Ning Shumo was full of doubts, but she forgot that the heavenly Tao stone could read her thoughts since it was so close to her. She suddenly felt that she had lost all faith as a stone. Chapter 2309. I'm a chaotic being. What do you mean by male or female? It angrily complained in Ning Shumo's mind. Ning Shumo looked at Shun Juli, who was standing beside her. She saw that he was just looking at them with his arms crossed. She quickly pulled up her son, who was almost glued to her lap. She pointed at Shun Juli and said, Nianma, haven't you always been thinking about your father? Look, he is back. Have you met him? Quickly, greet your father. Otherwise, Shun Juli would not know that Nianma was hiding in the stomach of the stone. Shin Nianma finally raised his head and looked at Shun Juli, who was only a few years older than him. He hesitated and finally called out, Father, Father. He blinked his eyes and felt a little strange. He actually saw his father wearing a doo-doo. He did not know which family had such a privilege. In fact, he wanted to jump into his father's arms, but looking at his father, who was like a little brother, he was too embarrassed to do so. Shun Juli glanced at his son. His son's little thoughts could not be hidden from his eyes. He waved at him and said, Nianma, come here. After all, it was the nature of father and son. Shin Nianma hesitated for a moment, but he still ran over and looked up at his father. Father? Father? Shun Juli carried him in his arms and stroked his hair gently. Don't you recognize your father, Nianma? Shun Nianma smelled the familiar scent on his body and finally found some feeling. He suddenly raised his little hand and raised it to hug his father's neck. I recognize you. Father, when you are free, can you turn into a doll wearing a doo-doo and play with me again? Shun Juli was speechless. Ning Shumo was speechless. She could not help but laugh. Did her son see his father wearing a doo-doo? Ha ha. If that was the case, her son's image of the great god would be ruined. Just when she thought of this, she saw a faint white light coming out from Shun Juli's palm. She instantly understood what Shun Juli wanted to do. She opened her mouth, but didn't say anything to stop him. If her son saw her wearing open crotch pants, she would have the urge to erase his memory. A moment later, Shin Nianma fell asleep on Shun Juli's shoulder. First of all, his nerves had been tense all day, and now that he was relaxed, he was indeed sleepy. Secondly, after a part of one's memory was erased, one would feel a little sleepy. He patted his son's back and looked up to see Ning Shumo looking at him with a faint smile. Guru, you're starting to erase my son's memory again. You've erased mine before, but I've recovered later. Do you want to erase mine too? Back then, when she saw him wearing a doo-doo, she mistook him for a ginseng baby. Shun Juli held her hand and pulled her towards the heavenly Tao stone. When you saw me, it proved that we were fated to be together. Since you are my wife, it doesn't matter if you saw me. But his son couldn't. Don't worry. I'm only erasing a small part of his memory. It won't affect him at all. He was his own son, so he naturally did not want him to be hurt. Ning Shumo's heart suddenly moved. The great god knew about erasing her memory. Did it mean that he was the great god who had experienced 3 lifetimes with her? Her eyes immediately became lively. She held Shun Juli's hand tightly. It was as if she was holding the whole world in her hands. Then, she looked at little Nianma in his arms and breathed a sigh of relief. This was her husband and her son. Now, the family of 3 was reunited. She had finally completed her journey. Chapter 2310. The most romantic thing I can think of is to raise the child with you, to be with you until the end of time, she sang softly. Her heart was filled with happiness that was about to overflow. The heavenly Tao stone wanted to sneak away when the family was reunited. However, it was shocked when it saw Shun Juli dragging his wife and child toward it. What are you doing? Shun Juli answered concisely. Send us back to Mo Palace. The heavenly Tao stone was unyielding. I'm the heavenly Tao stone, not a carriage. Was he really using it as a transportation tool? Shun Juli took out 7 or 8 red crystals and tossed them to the stone. You don't want these anymore? The blood crystals were full of energy. The heavenly Tao stone was almost startled. However, it was the heavenly Tao stone, the only high-class stone in the world. Giving in for a few pieces of jade seemed to be degrading its style. Shun Juli glanced at it. With a flick of his finger, another 4 blood-red beads flew out from his fingertips. Do you recognize this item? The heavenly Tao stone was shocked. The inner core of a top-grade demon. This was something that could only be found by chance. It immediately flooded Shun Juli's mind. The extreme demonic pill. By the way, supreme divinity. Although this thing can quickly improve one's skills, its demonic nature is very strong. You can't use it, or else you'll easily go mad and affect your divine body. You're quite knowledgeable. I don't need it, but I can give it to Xiuma, Shun Juli answered casually. She can't use it either. Her Buddhist nature is stronger than her demonic nature. If she consumes this pearl, it will greatly damage her Buddhist nature. The heavenly Tao stone advised earnestly. Shun Juli glanced at it and kept the inner cores. Then let's keep it first and give it to the fated one in the future. The heavenly Tao stone immediately said sincerely, I am the fated one. I can dissolve the evil aura above and only absorb the energy above. If it absorbed these inner cores and the blood crystal jade, it would definitely be able to recover to its original level within a day. What about sending us back to Mo Palace? The heavenly Tao stone didn't care about its principles anymore. Okay, I'll get it to you. I'll do it. Ning Xiuma looked at the hall filled with crystals and Shun Juli, who was sitting on the crystal lotus. She didn't expect that there would be another world inside the heavenly Tao stone. Needless to say, the Almighty was reborn here. Shun Juli gave the heavenly Tao stone an extreme demonic pill and a blood crystal jade. After the heavenly Tao stone was digested, the entire stone was as excited as if it had been injected with chicken blood. Like a whirlwind, it brought the family of 3 straight to Mo Palace. Ning Xiuma was sitting in the pavilion in the garden, drinking tea leisurely. Because the resentment between heaven and earth had been removed, the weather had returned to normal. From time to time, a few wisps of white clouds would float across the sky. The sky was high, the clouds were light, and the flowers and trees were flourishing. Everything could not be better. Ning Xiuma casually caught the petals that fluttered over and sighed. She hadn't seen Shun Juli for 3 days. After the family of 3 returned to Mo Palace that day, Shun Juli didn't appear in front of everyone. Instead, he sent Ning Xiuma and their son out of the heavenly Tao stone and asked them to return to the ground. He didn't come out with them. Ning Xiuma knew that he was in a hurry to cultivate and recover his power, so she didn't force him. She brought their son out in front of everyone first. Her safe return naturally caused a stir. The entire Mo Palace was filled with joy. Chapter 23:11. Ning Xiuma's story in the underworld had spread all over the 6 realms. Her reputation could not be any more well-known. Many people came to visit and congratulate her. Mo Palace was bustling with noise and excitement. The news of the Divine Lord's resurrection had also spread all over the world. Those who came to congratulate her naturally asked about the whereabouts of the Divine Lord. General Manager Heimu received Ning Xiuma's order and rejected all the questions with the excuse that the Divine Lord had returned to Fantion Palace. Everyone knew that the Divine Lord had always been indifferent and low-key. He did not like to socialize. It was reasonable for him to return to Fantion Palace to recuperate after his resurrection, so no one asked anymore. The hustle and bustle lasted for 2 days before it finally quieted down. Ning Xiuma finally had some free time to stroll around the garden and drink tea. At this moment, she was a little lost in her thoughts as she looked at the petals. Was the great deity really back? Everything was not a dream, was it? She rubbed her eyebrows and felt that she was beginning to worry about her gains and losses again. She looked at the lawn not far away. When she and little Nienma were sent out by the heavenly lost stone, they emerged from there. The heavenly lost stone should still be in that position, right? She had used the ground drilling spell to search the place more than 10 times, but she still could not find a shadow of the stone. The more she could not find it, the more uncertain she felt. There was always a sense of emptiness in her heart. Part of little Nienma's memory had been wiped away by Shunjiuli. He could not remember anything about his father in the heavenly lost stone. This made Ning Shuima feel that she was still dreaming. The air was filled with the fragrance of the plants. Ning Shuima slowly walked down and circled around the lawn. She was wondering if she should go down and look for it again. She did not want to disturb Shinjiuli. She just wanted to make sure that she could find the stone. Mother! Little Nienma rushed to her and threw himself into her arms. Ning Shuima picked up her son and pinched his arms and legs. She was pleased to find that the little guy had grown a little chubbier. Now it looked white and tender like a pink glutinous rice ball. Strangely enough, little Nienma was very clingy on the first day when she came back. He followed her around like a little tail. He would look for her whenever she was not around. Even when Ning Shuima met with the leaders of the 6 realms, he followed her everywhere as if he had been abandoned. But the next day, it was as if he had suddenly grown up. He told her that he wanted to concentrate on his cultivation. He wanted to practice his martial arts to be very powerful so that he could protect his mother. Ning Shuima was naturally gratified by her son's ambition, so she stopped caring about him. He only wanted Bai Zhe to follow him. She hadn't seen her son for 2 days. Now that she saw him running over, she was naturally happy. She picked her son up and kissed him on the cheek. At the same time, she asked her son about his homework and what he had learned in the past 2 days. Little Nienma pondered for a moment and took out 2 drawings from his pocket. He handed them to Ning Shuima and asked, "Mother, what do you think of my drawing skills?" Ning Shuima raised her eyebrows. She hadn't forgotten the small figure drawn by her son, so she just casually glanced at it. Her eyes widened at what she saw. There were 2 sets of wedding clothes in the drawing. Although the style of the drawing was still immature, the characteristics of the wedding clothes could be clearly drawn. It was very much like a modern design of clothing drawings. She hadn't seen her son for a few days, but his drawing skills had improved by leaps and bounds. It seemed that he had inherited it from his father. Ning Shuima was very pleased to see it. She gave her son a thumbs up and praised him generously. Chapter 23:12. Little Nienma smiled and shook her arm. He asked her which of the 2 sets of wedding dresses was the most beautiful, and the one she liked the most. Ning Shuima looked at it carefully and pointed at one of the sets. Mother likes this one. She liked the style and the cloud pattern of the wedding dress. She had never seen this wedding dress before, but it was the style she liked. However, she was still a little puzzled. Her son was so young. Why did he want to draw such a wedding dress? Did he want to get married? Isn't this a little too precocious? Also, the design of the wedding dress was very beautiful. It did not seem like it was designed by little Nienma himself. She asked her son in a joking tone, "Nienma, did you think of the wedding dress by yourself?" Little Nienma paused and immediately shook his head. "No, Baize gave me a picture book. I thought it looked good, so I copied 2 sets. So that was it. The little guy's taste was good. It actually overlapped with hers. Actually, she liked the 2 sets of wedding clothes on the top. Mother, I have to go and practice. Goodbye, Mother." Little Nienma kissed her face and then jumped down from the ground and ran away. Ning Shuima was speechless. The little guy was running a little too fast. She had not had enough affection with her son. Her son did not seem to be clingy with her at all. Sigh, she seemed to be a little disappointed. It was said that boys would not be clingy with adults until they were 12 or 13 years old. Was it too early for Nienma? The boy was only 6 months old. He even drew the wedding dress and came to ask her if it looked good. Did he really have a crush on a little girl? Thinking up to this point, Ning Shuima felt that it was a bit funny, so she tossed this question aside. She circled around the grassland, but in the end, she didn't give up. She once again burrowed into the ground and carefully searched for a long time, but she still couldn't find the white stone shadow. At night, when Ning Xiuma was about to go to bed, little Nianma appeared at her door with a pillow and looked at her eagerly. "Mother, can I sleep with you tonight?" Ning Xiuma naturally won't object. She nodded. Okay. She hasn't slept with her son in her arms for a long time. She misses it. Little Nianma cheered and immediately climbed on her bed. He lay down obediently on the bed. Ning Xiuma also got on the bed and held her son in her arms. The little guy was chubby and warm, and it felt very comfortable to hold him in her arms. "Mother, can Nianma sleep with you often in the future?" "Sure," Ning Xiuma answered casually. She was quite willing to sleep with her son in her arms. It was like hugging a warm pillow. Yay! The little fellow cheered and snuggled deeper into her embrace. He was still a child and liked to sleep in his mother's arms. That way, he would feel more secure. However, someone said that he was not allowed to sleep with his mother in the future. Now that he had gotten his mother's approval, he immediately smiled. As long as his mother agreed, other people's opinions could be ignored. Little Nianma was very satisfied with the answer that he wanted. Then, he thought of something else. "Mother, tomorrow is your birthday. What do you want as a gift?" Her son was so filial. He actually thought of her birthday gift. If her son did not mention it, she would have almost forgotten about it. In fact, what she wanted was very simple. She wanted Shanjili to come back so that the family of three could reunite and never be separated again. Chapter 23:13. Tomorrow was her birthday, but there was no news from Shanjili. She was afraid that he could not remember her birthday. After all, they had been apart for a long time, and they had been through so many life-and-death situations. How could he remember her birthday? If it was not a dream, he should still be practicing. He would only appear when he fully recovered. She did not know when he would recover. She was a little distracted. Shinyama waited for a while, but she did not answer. He could not help but ask her again. Ning Xiuma lowered her head to look at her son's big eyes. She lowered her head and kissed his forehead. "No matter what gift Nianma prepares for you, you will like it." Shin Nianma was full of confidence. "I will give you an unforgettable birthday present." Both of them were chatting while lying on the bed. Little Nianma was still a child after all. He could not bear it any longer. When he was about to fall asleep, he was still worried about Ning Xiuma. "Mother, you have to hug Nianma more often in the future. Don't fool a child." Ning Xiuma remembered that she and her son had been apart for a long time. The little guy had gone through so many hardships at such a young age. She felt guilty and promised, "Okay, I won't fool you. Nianma can sleep with Mother whenever he wants to." With this promise, Shin Nianma was finally able to sleep without any worries. Ning Xiuma had a habit of waking up early every day. She would wake up at 6 o'clock every day. Shin Nianma was still a child, so he was not willing to wake up early. It was not easy to wake him up. Today, Ning Xiuma opened her eyes on time, but she found that her son, who had been sleeping next to her, was gone. She was shocked and quickly contacted her son with a directed audio spell. The little guy's voice was heard. "Mother, I want to prepare a birthday present for you. See you later." Ning Xiuma couldn't help but laugh. The little guy was really cute. In order to prepare a birthday present for her, he unexpectedly woke up early for the first time. She washed up a little. She did not care much about her birthday. She opened the door and was about to go to the study room to deal with the backlog of work. However, she saw General Manager Heimu standing outside the door. Behind him was a string of maids from Mo Palace. Today, Head Steward Heimu was wearing a new robe. His face was glowing, and there was a smile on his face. He looked as spirited as a bridegroom. The maids behind him were also dressed in new clothes, and they were even holding trays in their hands. Ning Xiuma raised an eyebrow. Steward Heimu usually only came here when he had something urgent to report. What was going on today? And he even brought so many people with him. Before she could ask, Head Steward Heimu took a step forward and said, "Congratulations, Devil Master." "Congratulations." The maids behind him followed suit and bowed. "Congratulations, Devil Lord. Congratulations." Ning Xiuma Was Chief Steward He Moo putting on a show? This line was a good play. She almost followed the script and asked him, where did the joy come from? Fortunately, she stopped herself and only looked at him. He Moo, are you all right? She felt that he was a little strange today. Head Steward He Moo smiled. Devil Master, listen. What's that noise outside? Ning Shuama. She listened carefully and faintly heard the sound of music from the front. The music sounded very festive, as if there was a happy occasion. She suddenly realized that Steward He Moo was going to celebrate her birthday, right? Chapter 23:14. She looked at the 2 rows of people behind He Moo and shook her head. You're making it too grand. She wasn't an old lady in her 70s or 80s. Today is such a joyous day. It's not too much to make it as grand as possible. Head Steward He Moo bowed again, then waved at the 2 rows of maids behind him. Help the Devil Master get dressed. Ning Shuama was speechless. All right, it was rare for them to make it so grand. She couldn't reject their enthusiasm. So be it. She was going to be the birthday girl for once. Devil Master, may this subordinate be so bold as to ask you something? Head Steward He Moo bowed again. What is it? Devil Master, when the maids dress you up later, can you close your eyes and not look at them? This subordinate wants you to open your eyes again. This subordinate wants to give you a big surprise. Head Steward He Moo was getting more and more mysterious today. Ning Shuama was very confident in Head Steward He Moo. Since he wanted to give her a surprise, she would wait for it. She had been a little bored these past 2 days, so it was fun to look forward to it. She would just treat it as sharing the joy with the people. Ning Shuama was a woman of her word. When the maids helped her get dressed, she didn't peek at them at all. She only felt that the clothes she was wearing today were especially complicated, and her hair was combed especially tightly. She even seemed to be wearing a veil. Ning Shuama knew how to dress up. She didn't even need to open her eyes. Just by looking at their actions on her face, she could tell what kind of makeup they put on her face. It wasn't a prank. If she wasn't mistaken, it should be extremely exquisite. Outside, the sound of a string instrument was melodious, cheerful, and pleasant to the ear. Ning Shuama sat there and listened, feeling very comfortable. It seemed that Head Steward He Moo had put in a lot of effort today. The song he chose was also one she liked, so she liked it very much. After the maids finished helping her get dressed, they helped her up. She didn't know what material the clothes were made of. Although it was complicated, it was strangely smooth on her body. It didn't feel cumbersome at all. The music outside suddenly stopped, and another piece of heavenly music descended from the sky. It sounded as if countless heavenly flowers were falling from the sky. The music was also joyous and festive. It was composed of guqin, pipa, flute, xiao, kongho, suona, and so on. The music played by so many musical instruments was unusually harmonious and pleasing to the ears. This piece of music was well arranged. Every single instrument was played to its best standard. Ning Shuama gave the composer a thumbs up in her heart. The maids clustered around her as they walked out of the hall. The music outside was even louder and clearer. In the midst of the music, her hand was suddenly held by someone. She subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand, but it was held tightly by that hand. That hand was warm and familiar. Ning Shuama's heart was beating wildly. Before she opened her eyes, she could smell a faintly discernible cold fragrance. At this moment, Head Steward He Moo's voice sounded at the right time. Devil Master, please open your eyes. Ning Shuama opened her eyes. Her gaze collided with a pair of deep blue eyes. That pair of eyes was slightly curved, and they were filled with a warm smile. Ning Shuama's heart skipped a beat. Shun Julie. He finally came. He finally appeared in front of her again. At this moment, he was holding her hand, and their fingers were intertwined. Did he come to celebrate her birthday? Ning Shuama's gaze shifted from his face to their intertwined hands, and then back to his body. Then, her small mouth opened slightly. You? Chapter 23:15. Shun Julie's outfit today was very different from the usual. His white robe was now red like fire. She knew better than anyone else that Shunjuli was obsessed with the color of his clothes. Shunjuli did not like red. At least, he did not like to wear red. She had known him for so long, but she had never seen him wear red. The most he would wear was a red plum embroidered on his white robe. Today, he was wearing a red robe. Judging from the style, it was the splendid red robe worn by the bridegrooms. Of course, the red robe he wore was much better than the other bridegrooms in terms of style and quality. It looked simple, but the tailoring was very fitting. It made his body look taller and taller. Ning Xiuma had always thought that Shunjuli was not suited to wear red. She did not expect him to look so elegant in it. His face was undoubtedly very handsome. When he looked at her with a smile, he was like a shining body that attracted everyone's attention, especially the women around him. They could not help but gasp. They could not take their eyes off him. When Ning Xiuma saw him appear in front of her wearing a red robe, her heart skipped a beat. In a split second, she knew what was going on. She subconsciously looked at herself. Indeed, she was wearing a red wedding dress. The wedding dress looked like... Ning Xiuma's heart suddenly skipped a beat. The wedding dress looked like the one that little Nianma asked her to choose for herself. She was wearing a wedding dress? Was she finally going to marry him? Although they even had a child, they did not officially hold any ceremony. He also did not give her any official status. And after so many life and death separations, she had completely forgotten about this. She thought that as long as the three of them were reunited, it would be the greatest happiness. She did not expect that he would give her such a big surprise. On her birthday, he came to marry her. Xiuema, will you marry me? Shunjuli's voice was heard. It was as magnetic and cold as the spring in the forest. His deep eyes looked at her as if he wanted to suck her soul in. How could she not be willing? She did not know how long she had been looking forward to this day. Was this considered a marriage proposal? Although this proposal was made during the wedding ceremony, it wasn't too late. Ning Xiuma's nose suddenly felt a little sour, but she tilted her head and looked at him with a faint smile. You didn't tell me in advance about such a big thing. Did you want to give me a surprise? Shunjuli smiled and held her even tighter. Yes. Do you like it? I like it. She loved it so much. She was about to go crazy with love. The bubbles of joy in his heart were already bubbling. Ning Xiuma finally understood what it meant to have a heart full of blooming flowers. This was it. She really felt the flowers in her heart blossoming one by one. Each blossoming with joy, she didn't say anything for a while. Shunjuli thought she was blaming him for arranging the wedding without discussing it with her. He said in a low voice, Xiuema, it's my fault for not discussing it with you in advance. If I like it. Ning Xiuema suddenly opened her mouth and interrupted him. Her eyes were bright, and her voice was clear and loud. Everyone present could hear her. I do. Thunderous applause rang out from all around. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and cheers rang out. Ning Xiuema looked around and realized that the outside of her bedroom was already decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was splendid and splendid, with red silk ribbons fluttering in the wind. Chapter 23:16. Obviously, these were all arranged in the middle of the night to give her a surprise. Every arrangement was ingenious. It seemed that everyone in the MO Palace knew about this wedding, except for her, the most important person involved. They must have put in a lot of effort to create this surprise for her, right? Manager Himu, who was standing not far away, also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This idea was proposed by Shunjuli. He was the one who arranged everything in the MO Palace secretly. He was afraid that the Devil Master would blame him at this moment. But now he was finally relieved. The Devil Master was a generous and straightforward woman. If she liked something, she would like it. She would not be bashful. Shunjuli also smiled as if a burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He lifted her up and said, Xiuema, come home with me. He walked towards the gorgeous wedding car not far away. Ning Xiuema felt that everything that happened next was like a beautiful dream. The wedding car sent by Shunjuli was a wedding car woven with fresh flowers. There were clusters of red flowers that looked like peonies blooming on the car. The flowers were sparkling and translucent like dewdrops. There were sharp pearl tassels hanging around the wedding car. When they swayed slightly, they flashed with a dreamy luster. The interior of the car was also covered with flower petals. Ning Xuema sat in the car and felt like she was sitting in a sea of flowers. She was sitting on soft petals, which was more comfortable than clouds. Shenjuli sat behind her. She leaned in his arms and looked at the floating white clouds outside the car. The car was pulled by a red phoenix. It flew quickly and steadily in the air. There were various musicians playing in front of the wedding car. Every tune was beautiful and moving. Among the musicians, there was one person who attracted the most attention. That person was dressed in green. He was tall and straight. Looking at his back, one would think that he was very handsome. Ning Xuema's gaze fell on that person's back. She felt that that person was very familiar. That person seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly turned around and nodded at her, who had just stuck her head out of the car window. Ning Xuema's eyes widened. That person was Yi Tianli. So he really was still alive? He really wasn't dead? The videos Luo Jiuchen showed her that day were all lies. She did not kill her friend by mistake. Ning Xuema heaved a long sigh of relief, and the last bit of gloominess in her heart disappeared. But this fellow was really something else. He said he'd come down to the mortal world to help her find medicine, but he never turned back. No one had seen him since, causing her to think that he'd really fallen into Luo Jiuchen's hands. But now it seemed that wasn't the case. Shun Julie hugged her from behind and seemed to sense her emotions. He smiled and tightened his arms around her waist. He was indeed captured by Luo Jiuchen that day and was indeed trapped on the totem pole. However, he was trapped in the Western Array Core. I had already rescued him before I broke the array. It turned out that Luo Jiuchen was not completely lying. There was indeed a sacrifice trapped on the totem pole, but he also sensed that Yi Tianli had escaped at the first moment, so he mistakenly thought that it was Yi Tianli who had broken the West Formation Eye. He was resentful that he did not kill him in time. Ning Xuema suddenly seemed to think of something. Then, who was trapped on the totem pole in the Northern Array Core? In other words, who did she accidentally kill? Shun Julie said lazily in her ear, "Not every totem pole can trap people." Ning Xuema's eyes lit up. Did that mean that there was no one on the North Totem Pole? She breathed a sigh of relief and patted her chest. "That's good." Shun Julie's eyes flashed slightly. He smiled and said nothing. Indeed, not every totem pole could trap people. For example, the totem pole in the south was empty, but the one in the north that Ning Xuema had broken originally trapped people. Chapter 23:17. The one who was trapped was the former heavenly emperor, Yun Lang. However, Shun Julie did not intend to let Ning Xuema know the truth, lest she felt guilty again. He did not want her to have any psychological burden. At this moment, he was very close to her, and there was almost no gap between them. His warm breath blew directly into her ear, making her ear itchy and warm. The atmosphere in the car was faintly ambiguous. Shun Julie hugged her in his arms and smelled the faint fragrance on her body. His heartbeat gradually quickened, but he restrained himself and did not let himself take the next step. Everything would be left in that moment. She would completely become his, from her body to her heart. They would have a lot of time to spend with each other, to make love. However, it was a little difficult to restrain himself at this moment. Shun Julie's body was slightly stiff. Of course, Ning Xuema did not know that he was in a dilemma at this moment. Her body leaned against his broad chest, as if she was leaning against the whole world, and her heart was bubbling with warmth. She had never thought that a person could be so happy to this extent. This kind of happiness seemed to overflow from her chest, and it made her eyebrows curl and the corners of her lips curl up. She felt that it was not enough, and she wanted to be more intimate with him. She turned around and hugged his waist, leaning her head on his chest to listen to his steady and powerful heartbeat. Then she realized that his heartbeat seemed to be a little fast, and it seemed to be getting faster and faster. "Almighty, your heartbeat is so fast." Dong, 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 it vibrated her eardrums, making her heart beat faster for no reason. Shunjuli. He was trying hard to restrain himself, but this girl still teased him. He did not say anything, but he did not hug her back. Ning Shumo looked up and met his deep eyes, and her heart skipped a beat. He clearly didn't do anything, but Ning Shumo had an inexplicable feeling of being swallowed by him. She coughed and looked down, past his tall nose, and landed on his beautiful light red lips. His lips were light, but there was a kind of captivating charm, which made Ning Shumo want to kiss him again. At this time, she would naturally do whatever she wanted to do. So she kissed him directly. Shunjuli's body stiffened slightly, and his fingers clenched by his side. Ning Shumo licked his lips, and his lips were slightly pursed, and he did not respond to her. Ning Shumo did not give up, and used the tip of her tongue to trace his lips, but she still did not get a response. He lost interest in her so quickly. They had met after such a long separation. He did not even give her a proper kiss. Ning Shumo felt a little wronged, pursed her lips, and wanted to take a step back. Her waist was suddenly hugged tightly by him. Then the world spun around her. When she opened her eyes, she was already pinned down by his body. His breath was scorching hot, and his voice was slightly hoarse. Shuema, do you want me to take you here? Their bodies were pressed together without any gap, and she could clearly feel the change in his body. A certain part of him was as hard as iron. Her face suddenly turned red. Although the inside of the car was magnificent, there was a wedding procession outside the car, and there were people all around. Although she had always been open-minded, she did not want to do it in this place. Moreover, she was wearing a bridal gown. Although the gown was very beautiful, it had a very bad problem. It was not easy to put it on or take it off, and it could only be used once. Once it was taken off, it would not be able to return to its original state. Chapter 23:18. She did not want to be disheveled when she got out of the car. She coughed and pushed him away. No, I don't want to. Well, get up. Let's talk. Shunjuli took a deep breath and lay down beside her. He calmed his breath and asked her lazily, "What do you want to talk to me about?" There were too many things that she wanted to talk to him about. She thought of the most important one. Where is Nianma? Shunjuli traced her mouth with his finger. Can you guess where he is? Ning Shuama had a sudden idea. Is he in the Fantion Palace? Smart. Shunjuli praised her. Ning Shuama turned over and held his restless hand. Little Nianma should know about the wedding today, right? Have you discussed it with him? What did you crawl out of the heavenly lost stone? The first thing you did after crawling out was not to see me. She asked a series of questions. Shunjuli laughed. How can I surprise you if I see you in advance? As for the recovery, I only fully recovered in the early hours of this morning. In other words, he only came out of the heavenly lost stone today. Ning Shuama was bewildered. But from what I see, this formation of yours doesn't seem to be something you came up with on the spot. The wedding seemed simple, but it was complicated. Moreover, he had made it so grand that it had never been before. Shunjili played the flute between his fingers. Haven't you heard of the word strategizing? Even if he was in the heavenly lost stone, he could still command people to do those complicated things. Well, what you said makes sense. However, the two wedding pictures that Nianma made were drawn by you, right? Did you ask him to copy them? So, you have met him before yesterday. Since you did not come out in advance, how did you meet him? Shunjuli raised his hand and touched her head. Then, he told her more exciting news. Nianma can go in and out of the heavenly lost stone at will these 2 days. Some of my orders were sent out by him. It turned out that the little guy had actually done so many things behind the scenes. She looked at him. The 8 great divine beasts also knew about it in advance, right? Over the past 3 days, she hadn't seen the shadows of the 8 divine beasts at all. At that time, head steward Himu had said that the 8 divine beasts, aside from Baize, were all in closed-door cultivation. She had believed it to be true, but this time there were 8 mythological beasts in the wedding procession brought by Shunjuli. The one pulling the carriage was the fire phoenix, while the ones clearing the way were the soaring serpent and Xiangqi. Baize was holding the line, and there were a few other divine beasts on both sides and at the back. Not one of the 8 divine beasts was missing. All of them were in high spirits, beaming with joy. The 8 mythological beasts became the main force and auspicious beasts of the wedding procession. Who in the 6 realms would be so generous? Moreover, judging from their formation, it was obvious that they were well-trained and had rehearsed in advance. Ning Xuema's question hit the nail on the head. Shunjuli smiled and said nothing. It turned out that the whole world knew about it, and she was the only one who was kept in the dark. She was such a smart person, but she was actually kept in the dark. They had made such a big scene, but they did not give themselves away in advance. Needless to say, Shunjuli was secretly directing all of this. The Almighty was indeed a black-bellied master. Ning Xuema looked at his eyebrows and asked, "Almighty, how many lives of memory do you have? Do you have 3 lives?" Shunjuli looked at her quietly. After a moment, he smiled and said, "For lives." Chapter 23:19. Ning Xuema's heart skipped a beat. For lifetimes? Which 4 lifetimes? She had only experienced 3 lifetimes with him. Where did the 4th life come from? Shunjuli lay down again and answered her lazily. "Think about it yourself." When Ning Xuema was about to think about it, there was a sudden explosion of fireworks outside. Shunjuli sat up with her in his arms and snuggled with her in front of the window. "Come, look at the birthday present I have prepared for you." Flames rose into the sky one after another, exploding in the deep blue sky. Then they scattered into tens of thousands of flowers that drifted with the wind. Those flowers were as red as the red spider lily, but the outer circle was inlaid with silver edges. Each flower was dazzling and beautiful, falling like rain. The scenery was so dreamy that it almost made people feel like they were in a dream. Ning Xuema opened her eyes wide and murmured, "Am I still dreaming?" Shunjuli's fingers were still intertwined with hers. He did not say anything, but he held her hand tightly and hugged her even tighter. If this was a dream, he would continue to have this dream with her until the end of time. The journey was dreamy, accompanied by the accompaniment of the heavenly music. Finally, the flower car, filled with happiness, slowly landed in front of the Fantion Palace. The auspicious air in front of the Fantion Palace was steaming. It was filled with various guests who came to congratulate them. At the moment when the flower car landed, not only were there 2 colored flowers falling to greet them, but there was also a thunderous applause. Ning Xuema was held by Shunjuli as they walked out of the flower car. Then, Ning Xuema finally saw her son. Little Nianma was wearing a handsome and beautiful bright golden robe today. He was carrying a flower basket in his small hand, and there were 2 groups of children behind him. One group was a group of maidens, and the other group was a group of boys. The maidens were wearing snow-white fairy dresses, and the boys were wearing sky-blue robes. Every child was as beautiful as an angel in a painting. When little Nianma led them to walk over, they were particularly eye-catching. The flower boys were led by little Nianma. Little Nianma was holding a big bouquet of flowers in his hands. The bouquet was made of rare moonflowers. It was as if he was holding a big bouquet of the moon in his hands. There were even star grass as embellishments. It was beautiful beyond words. Little Nianma handed the bouquet of flowers to Ning Xuema. His eyes were as big as the moon. "Mother, happy marriage and happy birthday." It turned out that this was the gift that little Nianma prepared for her. It was indeed special. Ning Xuema took the bouquet and looked at her son's fair and tender face. She had the urge to hug him and take a bite. Standing next to little Nianma was a beautiful little girl. She had a pair of big eyes that were so bright that they looked like they were carved from jade. Whose child was this? She would be a good wife for little Nianma. Ning Xuema pondered. Shunjuli held her hand and said to her with a smile, "Children and grandchildren will have their own fate. Don't try to match them up." Ning Xuema glanced at him. Was this guy a roundworm in her stomach? He actually guessed what she was thinking about so quickly. All right, she was just thinking about it. She looked up at the Fantion Palace and was moved. The layout of the Pantheon Palace had completely changed. Whether it was the gate or the courtyard walls, they had all changed. Although the original style was grand enough, it always gave a cold feeling and lacked the warmth of a home. The current style was a combination of both, and even had a dreamy color. Ning Xiuma liked it at first sight. Chapter 23:20. At this moment, the gate of the Pantheon Palace was wide open. In order to accommodate the guests, all the restrictions were removed. The people who came to congratulate the wedding could enter and leave freely. Of course, only a part of the entrance was allowed to enter and exit freely. It was the part that led to the main hall of the Pantheon Palace. The Divine Lord liked to be quiet and clean, so the other parts of the Pantheon Palace were not open to the public. The wedding officially began. The music began to play. Little Nianma and the little girl who was walking beside him flew together. A pair of snow-white wings even spread out on the back of the little girl. The two of them flew forward in the air and sprinkled fragrant petals along the way. The other children followed behind them and sprinkled flowers in the air. It was a beautiful scene. Shun Jiuli held Ning Xiuma's hand as they walked on the road. Their clothes fluttered in the wind. The entire wedding scene was perfect. When the two of them walked on the platform that was specially built for the wedding, the atmosphere of the whole scene was pushed to the peak. The Divine Lord and the Great Devil were already at the top of the continent. Naturally, they did not bow to the heavens and the earth like ordinary couples. Shun Jiuli and Ning Xiuma only symbolically bowed to the heavens. They did not kneel, but only bowed. Then, the couple bowed to each other. There was nothing wrong with this bow. Ning Xiuma followed Shun Jiuli's path. After symbolically bowing to the heavens and the earth, Ning Xiuma straightened up. Suddenly, a line of words appeared in her mind. I think when you bow to your parents, you can bow to me. Ning Xiuma was stunned. She glanced at the corner of the high platform and saw a white stone that was squatting there. At the moment, it was shining with resentment. Ning Xiuma was speechless. The high platform was decorated splendidly with many things. She directly ignored this inconspicuous stone just now. Shun Jiuli naturally also received the resentment of the heavenly law stone, but he was too lazy to care about it and directly ignored it. The heavenly law stone's heart was a little hurt. Suddenly, the white light shone brightly. It almost blinded the eyes of the audience below the stage. Then, in the white light, it flew up with a swoosh and circled above everyone's heads like a small mountain, causing the people below to cry out in alarm. Then, as if it had found a feeling, it flew away proudly with a swoosh. Before it left, Shun Jiuli and Ning Xiuma each had a line of words in their minds. You will regret this. Ning Xiuma. She found it a little funny. The heavenly Tao stone was behaving like a child throwing a tantrum. She transmitted her voice to Shun Jiuli. Where did it fly to? Should he go and coax it later? After all, it represents the heavenly Tao, and it even allowed you to be reborn. Shun Jiuli didn't take it to heart. Don't worry about it. It often has this kind of temper. The heavenly Tao stone conveyed the will of the heavenly Tao, and he was the guardian of the heavenly Tao. The two of them were actually equal, so he naturally didn't need to worship it. Besides, this arrogant stone was often angered by him. Usually, it would be fine after 3 to 5 days. The people below the stage looked at each other. No one thought that a stone could grow legs and fly away with a swoosh. Of course, this was just a small episode. Shun Jiuli didn't take it to heart. The guests were surprised for a while, but they also forgot about it. After the ceremony, it was time to throw the bouquet. According to the saying of the celestial demons continent, whoever caught the bouquet thrown by the bride would be able to find a good partner. Therefore, when Bai Zhe, who was acting as the MC, shouted, "Bride, please throw the bouquet to spread your good fortune," then the unmarried men and women below rushed to the front of the stage. They all wanted to catch the bouquet and be tainted by the Devil Lord's happiness. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.